Honorable world leaders, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, bienvenue au Forum mondial.
Welcome to this Global Forum for Vaccine Sovereignty and Innovation. My name is Karine Diop-Touram, and I am honored to welcome you to this event today. I would like to thank, first of all, the government of France for hosting us at the Quai d'Orsay in this spectacular room. I would also like to thank the co-host, the African Union, for their invaluable support. Last year, Gavi hit a milestone, 1 billion vaccinated children, and you'll today discover Gavi's plans to protect even more children against even more diseases and faster than ever before. So to vaccinate more children against more diseases faster than ever before. Thank you, world leaders, government leaders, leaders of partners, private sector CSOs, for working together today to launch the sixth strategic period, Gavi 6.0. 6.0, as we say. And we'll also be launching AVMA, the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator. I will try to limit acronyms today. I'll try my best. It is a busy day that lies ahead of us today.
I have the great pleasure of inviting Professor José Manuel Barroso board to the stage. Professor Barroso, over to you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, President of the Republic, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. It is an honor and an incredible privilege to welcome you this morning. I am deeply grateful to you all for joining us. And of course, I extend my deepest gratitude to President Macron and President Gazuani, our incredible hosts that have brought us together today. Allow me, President Macron, to say thank you. A very special thank you for your unwavering support to Gavi and to our organization. Thank you to France, but thank you as well for your work within the EU and Team Europe. The EU is one of our biggest donors. I would also like to say a special thanks to the African Union. We are very proud of the President of Botswana, of Ghana and Rwanda and Senegal for being here with us today. Africa is also represented here by a high number of health ministers and of the President of Africa CDC and the Chair of the African Commission. Now, we're often told that multilateralism and cooperation are in retreat, that nationalism, cynicism, and self-interest are triumphing over the values of solidarity and justice. But seeing this wonderful room today, I see a very different picture. What do I see? I see faces of people that have worked together to halve child mortality over the past 20 years. I see faith in a better future, and I see commitment to working together to make that future a reality. I see hope. In spite of all the geopolitical tension in the world today, we are faced with a simple truth, an unavoidable truth, that global challenges need global solutions. Global challenges that define this century, climate change, antibiotic resistance, outbreaks of infectious diseases, they need solutions based on partnership, cooperation and solidarity. Qualities that are at the heart of today's forum, at the very core of Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and I am honored to chair the board of Gavi. So today we're here to discuss practical steps to shape a better world. We know that we can do it because we have been doing it for 20 years. 1 billion vaccinated children since the year 2000. That's an incredible achievement. And we should all be proud to say that a child born today is more likely to celebrate their 5th birthday than any other time in history before. But, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we can do more. There are still millions of children who have never been vaccinated against a single disease. There are hundreds of millions more that have an urgent need to access a growing number of vaccines of our portfolio that is expanding, that can protect individuals, communities, countries, and essentially the world from deadly yet preventable diseases.
Today we'll hear about new vaccines, new partnerships, new approaches, and new innovations to drive equity, access and development, and strengthen health security and sovereignty. This last word is key. Too often, sovereignty is misunderstood as opposite to cooperation, partnership and solidarity. This could not be further from the truth in the field of public health. The fundamentals of vaccine sovereignty, national ownership of immunization strategies, the ability to fund those strategies, and the security of vaccine supply can be strengthened most effectively by working together. Solidarity and sovereignty are symbiotic in this field of public health. We are at an inflection point, ladies and gentlemen. Few avenues of human endeavor promise as much for humanity over the coming years as immunization. But we cannot underestimate the challenges that remain. The Sustainable Development Goal deadline of 2030 is approaching very fast. Our decisions today and in the months ahead, our commitment to extending the transformative power of immunization into every community will be decisive factors in determining whether we can look back from the vantage point of 2030 with pride and satisfaction, or whether we will look back in anguish at missed opportunities and squandered potential. I strongly believe that the prevailing narrative in the world today, a narrative of retrenchment and fragmentation, is misleading. We must not allow it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Today gives us an opportunity to reset that narrative, to come together for a common cause that we have already done so much to further. And this forum can contribute to the beginning of a new era for immunization and equity. Together, we can accelerate progress towards making this the most protected generation in history. We will show that the so-called realists, and sometimes there is a very different understanding what is a realist, what is a cynic, the realists and cynics are not always right. Hope is not only a duty, but is the best way for justice. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to say we have a very packed and fascinating program ahead of us. As it was already mentioned, in fact, it are two programs combined, and it's not a coincidence. We are going to present the investment opportunity for Gavi for the years 2026-2030. At the same time, we are presenting AVMA, the launch of AVMA, the Africa Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator. And this is exactly about what we mean about accelerating our action, increasing the capacity to deliver results. I will now declare open this Global Forum for Vaccine Sovereignty and Innovation. I wish all of us a very good work. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Barroso, for those powerful remarks. Looking around the room, I feel I must agree with you, because I see leaders who are not only united in their dedication to solving challenges through collective union, they can demonstrate the results to prove it. Nous allons maintenant entendre son Excellence Monsieur Moussa Faki, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Monsieur le Président, je vous laisse la parole.
Over to you, Moussa Faki. Emmanuel Macron, President of the French Republic, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government and delegations, Professor Barroso, Chair of the Gavi Board, ministers, representatives of international organizations, friends from civil society and the private sector, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Africa, in the face of its fate, is now seeing a multiplicity of crises that are major, from climate change to governance problems, and also communication, infrastructure problems, energy issues, agriculture, food needs, and health questions as well. even relative autonomy in terms of manufacturing vaccines and health supplies is another item on this list. According to current data, the African continent is still very low on those ranking boards. And so our strength is to unite our voices and efforts to change this intolerable situation. I would like to highlight the fact that in spite of the importance of this international event, Africa must find solutions for itself. Indeed, health security and vaccines and political sovereignty must be conquered. Sovereignty must be conquered. The 2060 agenda and the 2030 agenda have lots of objectives to achieve, and independence and the independence of the African people are deeply threatened as long as if we do not reach all of those objectives. COVID-19 and other crises show that African resilience is not enough. So governments that are here today to see the launch of AVMA, the African Vaccine Manufacturer Accelerator, we believe that that is a crucial step towards capacity building of manufacturing and distribution of vaccines in Africa. By investing $1 billion, Gavi is giving a positive signal to all partners in Africa. I hope that others will join in. I would like to take this opportunity to say long live Gavi. Sanya Nishtar, who is CEO of Gavi, its partners and funders, I would like to thank you. However, legal frameworks, subpar infrastructure, weak expertise, and lack of funding are all major challenges. But global health is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is vital. The continent still imports 99% of all vaccines at very high prices, meaning the continent is highly reliant on imports. And $3 billion a year could be saved by manufacturing local vaccines. So there is a lot to gain. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to see that there are some African countries that are on the right track. I would like to pay tribute to these countries' leaders. Some of those leaders are here with us today. The steps forward have been decisive, but of course limited. The Senegal Pasteur Institute, the African branch of that institute, is remarkable. There's the South African BioNTech Institute that has a manufacturing unit in Rwanda, and other similar initiatives are underway in other regions on the continent. However, in the face of hesitancy, it is good news to see that the Accelerator, the African Vaccine Manufacturer Accelerator, can support the African Union's partnerships for African vaccine manufacturing and the CDC's new health order to accelerate access to vaccines and their distribution. AVMA will be a catalyst for the pharmaceutical industry in Africa. It will create an environment conducive to technology transfer, technological assistance, innovation, and cooperation among states. Africa CDC is called upon to increase manufacturing capacities for medicines in Africa by 1 to 60% by 2040. So As part of this movement, the Continental Free Trade Area that is underway, that will no doubt support the integration of global health sovereignty on the continent. By supporting inter-African trade, by bringing down trade barriers, it will enable greater access to raw materials and will accelerate manufacturing and distribution process of vaccines across the continent. So it is within our abilities to use all of these tools and instruments to give, and all of that will give us a strength moving forward. And I call on all African Union members to join their efforts to AVMA and to actively participate in research and acquisition and infrastructure increase. I would like to express my gratitude to those who took part in creating AVMA. I would like to commend in particular the role played by France and President Emmanuel Macron in this adventure that has brought us here together. I would like to reiterate the African Union's commitment to work with determination to the progressive progress of health security in Africa. Thank you very much.
Merci. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairperson. Indeed, we support the efforts deployed by the African Union Commission to accelerate the use of vaccines in the states of the African Union. Now I have the great honor of handing the floor to President Emmanuel Macron, President of France. The fact that you are hosting this event is testament to France's commitment to support new innovation that contributes to protecting all of us against new threats and bolstering health systems that exist to support more children and the broader population. You have the floor. Thank you very much. Presidents of the Republic of Botswana, of Ghana, of Rwanda and Senegal, President or Chair of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, Mr. Barroso, leaders of international organizations, Commissioner, ministers, ambassadors, CEOs of pharmaceutical companies and research laboratories, CDC Africa, representatives of civil society committed to global health, dear friends. I am very proud of our collective journey over the past few years that has put global health at the top of the international priority list because it is vital, it's in our collective interest to protect ourselves. And it is something that has been led in rich countries, and it's about partnership in the genuine sense of the term. It's not assistance, because if we do not protect continents that are affected by pandemics, then the whole world will be affected. Health is also a fundamental right. It is about equity and progress. It is about equality among women and men. Health is also about sovereignty, which is at the heart of this partnership that you mentioned between Europe and Africa, that we reiterated at the latest summit between the African Union and the European Union. Global health has become geopolitical, and health cooperation is a proof of mutual trust. This struggle for global health is taxing, and I would like to say here that France has taken it on and is proud to do so. Proud that France's contribution to international solidarity has increased by 50% in 7 years, with a sharp focus on health. Proud to protect tools such as the FSD, the Fund for Solidarity and Development, and that direct and symbolic link between taxing globalization, for instance, plane tickets and financial transactions, and financing international solidarity, and that will be protected at all costs. We can be proud of what we've achieved with the Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, as an example, 1 billion vaccinated children. And this work is done in synergy with Gavi, UNTAID, and the World Health Organization, and many other partners as well. And when some are tempted to withdraw, when some consider that, in essence, helping Africa or other continents on these issues is unnecessary, and we could save money by not doing that. I would say that, on the contrary, this balanced partnership is essential for Africa, but also for understanding the global order of today. Now, this has all changed over the past few years. I know that you probably all remember the COVID times from the very first weeks. You invited me right from the beginning. I was at a WHO bureau meeting. President Kagame was there. I think President Fodo as well. Around President Ramaphosa and Musafaki as well. And it was the beginning of that pandemic that affected us all. And that's how we began to initiate the COVAX initiative that was then led by G20. But it stemmed from the African Union and that meeting we held together. And right from the start, we implemented solidarity mechanisms that didn't exist up until then. Doses, donations, initiatives for tests to roll out vaccines whenever they were available. But we also saw the limits of said solidarity. We all saw those limitations. And simply put, when the richest countries had access to those vaccines, they forgot about that solidarity, and even though mechanisms were put in place, and had we not done that, the situation would have been a lot worse. But we saw those limitations. Indeed, the primary health countries in many countries had not been invested in enough for a very long time, and by then it was too late. Another limitation, when times were hard and there weren't enough doses, the countries that manufactured doses kept them for themselves, and we in Europe also felt that because we were reliant on other countries, and also countries used doses for themselves before sending them to the others. And of course, Africa, who only had 2% of those doses, thought, yes, thank you for the solidarity, but in order to, exit this situation, manufacturing was going to be the solution. And so in the following months, manufacturing capacity was increased with the help of the Pasteur Institute in Dakar. We also created new capacity in Kigali, for instance. Or in South Africa, through partnerships, we created new capacity as well. And we began that work together by seeing that COVAX wasn't enough, because purchasing vaccines wasn't enough, but we had to manufacture them on the African continent. Africa manufactures only 2% of the vaccines that it uses, and the aim that we have set for ourselves is that by 2040, 60% of vaccines are manufactured on the continent. So France and Europe has been supporting this initiative since 2021 with 1.3 billion euros, but we can do more. And as Mr. Barroso just said, it is really with this at heart that we are launching the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator with the African Union to promote African manufacturing capacity. So the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator on African soil. So France has reallocated $100 million to this mechanism, and Team Europe, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here, is covering 3/4 of these $1.2 billion of financing. And I would like to thank partners, including United States, Canada, the UK, Norway, Japan, and the Gates Foundation. It is a global movement. AVMA, this accelerator for vaccine manufacturing, is a building block towards this genuine African vaccine market. It is an African movement, and we are happy to celebrate it in its first steps of this initiative that was designed by Africa. France is going to has invested 3 million euros since 2020 along 4 streams, and I'd like to recall this because this is part of a solidarity package, so to say. So, manufacturing capacity, by supporting South African labs, Biovac and Aspen, I visited in summer 2021, and the Dakar Pasteur Institute. Also, research and development, namely through this very ambitious initiative led by the WHO, thank you, Dr. Tedros, the Medicines Patent Pool, Charles Gore, the mRNA technology transfer hub in South Africa that has a presence in 15 countries, namely in Rwanda as well. Then regulatory capacity, and I'd like to commend Rwanda and Senegal for major progress and the future African Medicines Agency, and training professionals in the health supply manufacturing chains and the key role played by the WHO Academy. And I'm proud to say that France is joining the International Vaccine Institute that will be held in the Lyon Academy. We need the private sector, and I'd like to commend the commitment of many businesses and companies, whether it be U Biologics in Korea or Sanofi. They will be able to tell us a bit about more their announcements today. It is a strong signal of the ambition of AVMA. So investing in global health requires tireless effort. We have caught up some of the delays caused by the pandemics, the setbacks of the pandemics. There is still a long way to go before we reach our 2030 objectives, which is why here in Paris, we are launching the resource mobilization campaign for Gavi for 2026-2030. In line with France's historic commitment, I call on you to support this alliance that is a wonderful illustration, as Mr. Barroso said, of the effectiveness of multilateralism. France will continue to support Gavi for the 2026-2030 cycle, at least with the same amount of its previous pledge, in order to implement very concretely all of our priorities. And to do that, we need to clarify our collective scope of action, that of Gavi, and all other global health initiatives, the Global Fund, UNITAID, here today, the WHO for its standard-setting role and coordination role. I think that all of these agencies around the WHO will play an essential role, and we must continue to support that cooperation with, of course, the standard-setting role of the WHO, but with also by supporting national health strategies of countries, which is at the core of the new Global Financing Pact for People and the Planet that aims to support national health strategies. And many African leaders and ministers, their presence is required, and the condition for success is that all of these global strategies are built upon national strategies. So this ownership that you've talked about is key, but it's also something that we have learned from the pandemic. If there are no national strategies that are implemented by countries, and President Faodo defended that throughout the crisis, so we'll know full well. These global strategies, these billions that we're investing, aren't effective because they can only be effective if there is a strong national strategy, a consolidated structure on which to implement that. And the AFD also put lots of funding into primary healthcare in these countries with an aim to support national strategies to bolster said health systems. I would like to end by saying a few words about the global epidemic of cholera. I think it is the sharpest illustration of why we need to continue what we're doing, because cholera has struck Africa, half of Africa, and the French territory of Mayotte. And in the face of this emergency, France is proud to have answered the WHO's call and we invite you to continue those supports. So in the face of these crises, our initiative to bolster manufacturing capacity makes perfect sense, because there's a very cheap and effective vaccine against cholera out there. Yet today we are facing a global dearth because there is only one manufacturer that is very far away from the African continent. So today, thanks to the efforts made by our partners and especially Gavi, I am thrilled to announce that a manufacturing chain for vaccines for cholera will be deployed in Africa through our partner BioVac. The tool that we are launching today, AVMA, will support those investments as a priority, which just goes to show how relevant this initiative is. France will allocate 10 million euros to accelerate the manufacturing of this cholera vaccine in South Africa. So if you share this ambition of making cholera a thing of the past, by supporting this emergency action, by supporting local manufacturing and long-term prevention, I call on you, all of you here today, to join this initiative against cholera alongside 12 countries and organizers that are here today with us in this room. I will leave it there. Thank you for your commitment every day, and the efforts made by Director Generals, leaders. I'd like to thank the WHO for its work and say how important the work of the African Union and its partners is. There are so many priorities out there on the African continent: security, poverty, food, and I know how tempting it would be to let others take care of health. But it's through your consistency and your efforts that we can bolster African sovereignty, and that's how these initiatives can gain ground. And I'm thrilled for France to support you in that endeavor, and also to continue to stand alongside you. Thank you.
Merci, monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for all the good news. Thank you for this very positive announcement. You know that the support for France is essential for the success of the next strategic period. And let's listen now to His Excellency, Mr. Bassirou Diomaye Faye, President of Senegal. I'm a fan of him, and it is his first visit abroad since he was elected last April. You have the floor, sir. Mr. President of the French Republic, our host, dear heads of states and government, ladies and gentlemen ministers, Mr. President of the African Union Commission, Mr. President of the Board of Gavi, ladies and gentlemen ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like, first and foremost, to thank the French authorities for the warm welcome and the hospitality that were given to us since our arrival in Paris. I'm happy to join you today in order to participate to this mobilization campaign in favor of innovation and vaccine sovereignty to launch AVMA, the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator. I would like to congratulate the organizers of this event, Gavi, the World Alliance for Vaccine, the African Union and CDC Africa, and our host, France, for their efforts to serve public health. Being here personally in the forum, I wanted to express my personal link to health and the position it takes into the positions of health in government. So the recent history and the COVID pandemic showed us how vulnerable we were, how ill-prepared we were to face pandemics. And consequently, health should be a constant priority of ours. A little more than 4 years ago, COVID had transformed our health systems and endangered the immunization systems that were put back in the cupboard because we had to fight the pandemic. But according to the reports of UNICEF for 2021, 23 million children had not received the basic vaccination doses necessary for the normal growth of a child at the heart of this pandemic crisis. COVID and the pandemic had showed the disparities, the structural disparities that existed between developing countries and developed countries in the field of immunization. And despite the fact that Africa represents 20% of world population today, without strong manufacturing industry of vaccines, we remain under the hand of others to cover our vaccine immunization needs. So this shows you the size of the effort to be made. Ladies and gentlemen, by concentrating our meeting today on the acceleration of vaccine manufacturing in Africa through AVMA, Gavi and the partners are walking the talk to improve the situation of Africa with regards to vaccination. We need medication, but we need vaccines, and we have suffered from that during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we saw the very late arrival of vaccines to the continent. One of the main challenges of Africa today is to produce vaccines, drugs, and diagnose and do diagnostic operations. We have to be able to reach the different platforms of drug distribution to reach the health level of the future. It is one of our challenges today, and we ask all the partners to support us today. This is an agenda which is a priority as important as any other priorities linked to war situations or climatic change. Africa has the local production capacity for vaccines, and some pioneering countries have committed on this way, such as Senegal with the Pasteur Institute of Dakar. This institute was created a century ago and has 100 years experience in the production of vaccines. The Dakar Institute, Pasteur Institute, produced its first vaccine against yellow fever in 1937. The same vaccine was pre-qualified by WHO in 1966, so more than 50 years ago. And trying to reinforce its achievements, willing to produce more vaccines on the continent. 60% of the vaccines produced in Africa by 2040. So in order to reach all those objectives, the Dakar Pasteur Institute has developed a very ambitious program estimated at $250 million. And the program aims at improving the whole value chain of immunization, from the definition of need to the production and distribution of vaccines. Acquisition of equipment are being finalized today. The Vaccinopole site of Jaminaju is one of the units of this program, and it will have a yearly production capacity of 3 million vaccines, and will use technological platforms such as mRNA. And we have developed a national agency for pharmaceutical regulations. It has evolved in order to reach the necessary level to be able to accreditate the different vaccines. All this would not have been possible without an additional support by resources to finance research, innovation, and health infrastructure. And I would like to thank for that the country's institutions and partner organizations, first of which is Gavi, for the constant support they provide Senegal, and more specifically in promotion of immunization and vaccines. Our partnership with Gavi, and I have to stress this, has allowed us to have a lot of positive results. Thank you, Mr. Barroso, for this permanent support. It has contributed to the efficiency of our national immunization program and fighting against child mortality. Early child mortality. And I do know that Gavi does the same thing in other countries with the same positive results in the fields of health, prevention, and providing basic medical services, fighting early childhood mortality. As an essential element of solidarity and recognizing the services given to beneficiary countries, Gavi deserves constant support of the international community. This is why, as President of the Republic of Senegal, I would like to call all countries and partner institutions in order to contribute very generously to the replenishment of the Gavi Fund for the period 2026-2030. Supporting Gavi financing is also investing strategically in the protection of our children, of the present and future generations. And I will be committed in this campaign in favor of Gavi, and I invite you all to mobilize together. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. President. Senegal is a champion of vaccines and has been for many years. It's very important for Gavi that Senegal remains committed in our partnership as it always was.
A message from Germany's Federal Chancellor Scholz.
Ladies and gentlemen, vaccines work. We saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is also reflected in Gavi's impressive results in the last decade. 1 billion children have been vaccinated since 2000, saving at least 17 million lives. Child mortality has been halved since then globally, and Gavi has contributed significantly to this success. But much remains to be done. The African Union has set the goal of producing 60% of the needed vaccines in Africa by 2040. The African Union and its member states can count on Germany's support in achieving this goal. We have already engaged with Ghana, Senegal, South Africa and Rwanda in training experts, in strengthening regulatory frameworks and in developing pilot plants for vaccine technologies. Today we are taking the next step together. Germany is proud to support Gavi's African vaccine manufacturing Accelerator, initiated during the German G7 presidency in 2022. The AVMA is a milestone towards equal access to vaccines on the African continent. It will support the African vaccine manufacturing industry and improve the continent's resilience in the event of a crisis. We are happy to pledge $380 million, and I'm very grateful for every pledge announced by colleagues today. Let's work together in a joint effort by the entire alliance, industrial partners, implementing countries and development partners to achieve our ambitious goals in immunization and manufacturing. I thank President Macron for hosting today's conference, and I wish you every success with this important endeavor.
Please. Thank you, Chancellor. Every single one of us in here will take great strength from Germany's continued leadership in global health. It is with great pleasure that I now invite His Excellency Paul Kagame, the President of Rwanda, a great champion of immunization and friend to Gavi, to the stage. Please, President.
Thank you, President Macron, President of the Republic, French Republic, and thank you, President Gazwani, even if he's not around, and Mr. Barroso for inviting us to be here for this important meeting. Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Excellencies, Heads of State from Africa, honorable ministers, heads of international organizations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The COVID pandemic claimed millions of lives while exposing a new dimension of inequality between the developed and developing worlds. The virus did not leave any country unaffected, but timely access to vaccines and therapeutics was deeply uneven and unfair. In the urgency of the moment, Africa and its partners vowed to work together to build vaccine research and manufacturing capabilities for the long term. Once the pandemic passed, it would have been easy to forget this commitment and go back to business as usual. I therefore wish to commend France, the African Union, and the Gavi for convening this important meeting and actions flowing from that. The launch of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator will help ensure that vaccine production in Africa has a secure future. Last December, BioNTech inaugurated in Rwanda the first end-to-end mRNA production facility on our continent. The process which led to this result was initiated in 2021 by the African Union with Senegal, Ghana, and South Africa, as well as Rwanda, as the initial focal points. The head of BioNTech Africa and others working in that center impressively come from across Africa. In fact, the expert leading that center now is from Nigeria. So it brings Africa together in a very impressive way. Last month, CEPI announced $145 million in funding to support the commercial scale manufacturing at the BioNTech factory and develop robust pandemic preparedness capabilities, including research and development. There are other new initiatives that will also help our continent take full advantage of AVMA, notably the African Development Bank's African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, APTF, the African headquarters of the International Vaccine Institute, and the African Medicines Agency. These efforts show what is possible with strong partnerships that link governments, scientists, and innovative companies. Regulatory excellence is the key that unlocks vaccine sovereignty. Rwanda, therefore, committed to upgrading our national regulatory agency to maturity level 3 status as quickly as possible. I take this opportunity to thank the World Health Organization and our partners in the European Union, including France, who have supported us on this journey. The main purpose of these collaborations is not primarily to produce the vaccines that are currently in use in Africa. That is beneficial, but not really, it does not really move the needle in terms of access and health outcomes. The more ambitious objective we should aim for is to create new vaccines and therapies that target Africa's disease burden using the latest technology platforms. Almost all new vaccine and drug discovery is taking place using these platforms, increasingly with artificial intelligence applications. These products should be invented, perfected, and produced in Africa in an affordable manner, working with our global partners. This goal should call us to action. Gavi's model has already saved millions of lives, but there is more work to do. Rwanda strongly supports Gavi's replenishment process, as well as full funding of AVMA, and we will do our part. We must also continue building our continent's health institutions, Africa CDC, and Africa Medicines Agency. That includes a responsibility for all of us in Africa to increase contributions from our domestic resources to fund public health. As a continent, recent global shocks have taught us many lessons. Perhaps the most important is to take ownership of our future and our health. That is the shared commitment which is advanced by today's gathering. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I commend Rwanda for its progress in immunization coverage and long-standing partnership with Gavi. We now have a short video message from the First Lady of the United States of America, Dr. Jill Biden.
We often tell young people that they're our future, and it's true, but they're also our present. They have ideas they want to explore now, innovation they want to create now, change they want to make now. That's true of the young people I meet in the United States, and it's true around the world. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that they can keep reaching for those dreams now. That's what today is about. The 500 million children and young people that Gavi will be able to vaccinate with our support. Children who won't have to grow up with the threat of HPV or malaria because of what we can do. Each of them, a life protected, a present and future saved. That's the power of this group. So it's my honor to announce that my husband, President Biden, working with Congress, is pledging $1.58 billion over the next 5 years to support Gavi's efforts. The United States is deeply committed to this work, and we ask governments, foundations, and the private sector around the globe to join us in making bold commitments to Gavi to protect the next generation. To President Macron and the leaders from the African Union, thank you for hosting this event. 2 weeks ago, President Macron, you and Brigitte welcomed President Biden and me to your home with such warmth and generosity. And now you welcome the world with that same heart. And I'm so grateful that you have, because it will take all of us to make sure no more families have to lose loved ones to diseases we know how to prevent and treat, to give the world's children the todays and tomorrows they deserve, so we can keep building the future they want and need. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Dr. Biden for announcing an impressive, you applauded, 5-year pledge demonstrating the continued support for the American people to Gavi for its next strategy period. Before we go to our next speaker, I would first like to invite the presidents to come and join me here on the stage. Monsieur le Président de la République.
Mr. President of the Republic, Mr. Stéphane Séjourné, Mr. Minister of Europe and Foreign Affairs, Mr. José Manuel Barroso, President of the Gavi Board, His Excellency Mr. Moussa Faki, President of the Commission of the European Union, His Excellency Mr. Paul Kagame, President of the Rwanda, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Mr. Moksu Masisi, President of the Republic of Botswana, His Excellency Bassirou Diomaye Faye, President of the Republic of Senegal, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Tajani, Vice President of the Board of Ministers, Foreign Minister of Italy, Her Excellency Mr. Monem Bachara,
Please take your seats. We are about to resume.
S'il vous plaît.
We would like to continue, please. We haven't finished our discussion of vaccine sovereignty. A number of heads of states have other obligations now, but of course our discussions here will continue right now. So please do take your seats. We have a very busy morning ahead of us.
J'essaie. J'ai tenté la manière douce d'abord.
Well, that was the nice way of asking. Now perhaps I need to put my foot down. And if you don't sit down, you'll be in trouble. We do want to continue, please. We have some very important announcements for the future of vaccination in Africa.
We have a heavy schedule today, this morning. We have to go back to welcome more speakers, please. Don't make me scream, don't make me come to you and be physical with nobody. Please, guys, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Please, can you be seated so we can proceed? Thank you. We have a next session now. I'm gonna come to you guys. We have to proceed. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can we please go on? We have French manner. We can be rude. Okay, thank you very much. Please be seated so we can proceed now. There are so many more things to say. Enthusiastic things, so please, we have to put our things right. In this next session, dans cette prochaine session,
Here, we will be seeing how innovation has been the catalyst in increasing vaccination rates, and how Gavi will build the future of immunization so that we can immunize more children against more diseases more quickly in the next 5 years.
CEO Dr. Sanya Nishtar. Sanya, over to you to present the Gavi investment opportunity for 2026-2030. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. President Addo, President Faye, our own board chair, Professor Barroso, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring us. Thank you for your support. We're deeply humbled by your presence and your support. And I want to thank President Macron and Minister Zakropoulos for hosting us, for their support and facilitation to Gavi. And although President Kagame and President Masisi are not in the room, I want to recognize their presence and really want to thank them for making their way. Thank you all for being here. It was really heartwarming this morning to hear leaders talk about Gavi's impact. Today, a child born in a Gavi-supported country has a much higher chance of making it to their 5th birthday. Thanks to the power of immunization, the number of childhood deaths from vaccine-preventable diseases has fallen by 70% since 2000. This truly is an incredible achievement. Gavi has, to date, vaccinated over 1 billion children, and as we heard this morning, it has saved over 17 million lives. But sometimes the magnitude of these numbers can hide their true meaning, which is their impact on the lives of people. People like Michael in Kenya, who lost 2 friends to pneumonia before vaccines were available. So now, as a father of 3 daughters, Michael makes sure that his children are protected. It is children like Mohammed, who was vaccinated in the remote mountains of Sudan, and the vaccinator who rode on camelback to reach him to ensure he was protected. And we cannot forget health workers like Agnes, who climbs a near vertical ladder to vaccinate children in Uganda. Agnes actually reminds us that we still have a very long way to reach our goals. We are just 5 years away from the Sustainable Development Goals' deadlines, and yet millions of children still die from vaccine-preventable diseases. This is something we just cannot and will not accept. But the question is, what do we plan to do about it? And the answer to this is that we will accelerate Gavi's impact between 2026 and 2030 by reaching the next billion children in half the time. We will next, and I want to repeat for emphasis, we plan to reach the next billion children in half the time. This means vaccinating at least 500 million children, it means saving 8 million lives, and it means protecting the world, protecting people, and building systems. Let me make 5 quick points to illustrate this. We all lived through the COVID-19 pandemic, and none of us here needs to be reminded of the vital link between vaccination and global health security. With outbreaks, the question is not if, but when. And that is why Gavi is expanding vaccine programs to prevent outbreak-prone diseases at the source. We are also making the largest investment to date in vaccine stockpiles against diseases like Ebola, cholera, and yellow fever. Many of these diseases are being made worse by climate change, whilst the proliferation of others contributes to the rising risks of antimicrobial resistance. Vaccines, as we know, are vital tools as humanity races to adapt to these twin threats. The threats from outbreaks, of course, have been with humanity from the outset. And I just want us to reflect for a moment on Ebola. 10 years ago, the West African Ebola outbreak resulted in a humanitarian and economic catastrophe and sent shockwaves around the world. Gavi was swift to take action. We incentivized manufacturers, we enabled the rapid deployment of doses, and we then created a stockpile. And just last week, I'm pleased to let you know that the Ebola vaccines that we stockpile were approved for preventive vaccination for the very first time. This example illustrates the best of Gavi, from an agile and rapid response to a longer-term strategic commitment. I want to pause for a moment here, and I want you all to look at the picture on the screen. This is Abu Bakr. He lost 4 of his own family members to Ebola. And he was one of the first to take part in a vaccine trial. And I want all of us to remember today that we owe our security to the efforts of people like Abu Bakr. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 was perhaps the clearest example of the inequities that can arise when vaccine demand exceeds supply. And nowhere was that inequity felt more than in Africa. So it is befitting that we are celebrating the launch of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, or AVMA as we call it, and you've heard about it all through this morning. AVMA is essentially an innovative financing instrument. It is a pull incentive. It is a catalyst which aims to invest $1 billion over the next 10 years to stimulate the development of the African vaccine manufacturing. And today, we have taken a major step towards that goal. But let's be reminded that achievement of this goal will take the efforts of many stakeholders, and it will take time. And time, as you all know, is always in short supply during emergencies, which is why Gavi is also establishing the $2.5 billion Day Zero financing facility, which also includes the $500 million First Response Fund. And I'm pleased to let you know that both of these will completely transform our ability to act rapidly, act decisively, and act at scale to get vaccines to the people who need them during emergencies. My second point is about protecting people. In Gavi's next 5-year cycle, we will protect more children against more diseases faster than ever before. We will vaccinate 500 million children and save 800 million lives. Over 120 million young women and girls will be protected from cervical cancer with the HPV vaccine, saving 1.5 million lives. And over 50 million children will receive the new malaria vaccine. My third point is about communities and systems. Let's recall today that we are navigating multiple challenges: conflicts, humanitarian crises, displacements, and climate change. Responding to these challenges means building resilience. It means building systems at the intersection of primary health care and health security. So I'm pleased to let you know that we are launching a new country delivery initiative and a new health system strategy to drive integration of immunization into primary health care even further. And this approach will facilitate 1.4 billion contacts between families and health services by the end of 2030, which underlines the importance of immunization for other vital health services. Partnerships clearly will be at the heart of the delivery model. Partnerships with countries and our core alliance partners, partnerships with other global health initiatives and regional institutions to leverage synergies in countries, partnerships with development banks to unlock vital resources, partnerships with CSOs to deepen connection with communities, and partnerships with the private sector and innovators, including through a new Innovation Scale-Up Fund, which we will be launching shortly. And finally, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now more than ever, sustainability needs to be front and center in Gavi's model. So I'm pleased to let you know that over the next 5 years, countries will fund a record percentage of the cost of their vaccines, contributing over $4 billion. By 2030, more than 1 in 4 of the 78 lower-income countries originally supported by Gavi will be fully funding their own vaccine programs, and this is truly a joint achievement that we should be proud of. And let's just pause and look at the bigger picture now. Collectively, Gavi's support will deliver on an unprecedented $100 billion of wider economic benefits for countries. Whilst our operational costs will stay lean, a best-in-class 97 cents of every dollar will go on buying or delivering vaccines. So let me say with the utmost humility that this is an unbeatable return on investment for donors. To deliver on this ambitious acceleration plan, Gavi will need at least $9 billion in new pledges for the period 2026 to 2030. These resources, I can promise you, will make a direct impact on the ground. And let me take you to southern Malawi, to a primary healthcare center in Nsanje, to illustrate that. From December to March every year, the health facility that you see up on the screen just now used to fill up with sick children suffering from malaria due to the onset of the rains. Before 2019, health facilities used to register as many as 8 to 10 malaria episodes per child every year. This is a huge number for one child to withstand. 8 to 10 malaria episodes per child per year. Just think of the child. But then something extraordinary happened. In 2019, the world's first malaria vaccine began to roll out in Malawi. And since then, there has been a major improvement to rates of under 5 hospitalizations nationwide. There has been a lowering of the dreadful burden of disease on children. Now, there are far fewer severe malaria cases coming to the hospital. And this is a pattern we are seeing repeatedly wherever the malaria vaccine is being rolled out. I'll leave you with the words of Pius Wanyama, who is a paramedic working in Kenya. He told us that the malaria vaccine has brought a new sense of peace to the hospital wards. Think about that. A new sense of peace. Before the malaria vaccine, he says, there was rarely a day without a child suffering from malarial convulsions, and it's horrific to watch a child suffer from convulsions owing to a disease that is entirely preventable. But now, the paramedic told us, after the rollout of the vaccines, it is the convulsions that are a rarity. And that is really what today is all about. Children growing up to reach their full potential, families thriving, communities and nations building for the future. And if the price for that is $9 billion of new pledge for Gavi, then I think it is a small price to pay. And with that, I leave you all in peace. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sana. I'm pretty sure many here are feeling moved by those very human experiences you portrayed. You really brought Gavi's work, not to mention its ambition, to life. And your message came across loud and clear. We need at least $9 billion. The United Kingdom is the largest sovereign donor to Gavi's core programs, and I'm delighted to now invite to the stage the Right Honourable Lord Cameron, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs in the United Kingdom. Please.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Nishtar, that was a fabulous speech, and it's so good to have you leading this brilliant organization. I want to thank President Macron. I want to thank the African Union, José Manuel Barroso, for hosting us today. And it is wonderful to be in this beautiful city of Paris as it prepares for what I'm sure will be a stunning Olympic Games. And I remember in 2012, perhaps my favorite moment as Prime Minister was hosting the Olympic Games in London. And I'm sure yours will be every bit as spectacular. But if that was my favorite moment, I think my proudest moment was 2011, when Britain hosted, under my Prime Ministership, the first big Gavi pledging conference. And at that conference, we pledged £814 million, at the time, the biggest ever donation to Gavi. And I believe that made a huge difference, not just in the lives saved, but also in giving an impetus to this brilliant and extraordinary organization. Now, of course, you might think this is an odd place to be in the middle of a general election campaign. But as far as I'm concerned, there are 17 million reasons for being here. Because as we've heard multiple times this morning, Gavi has vaccinated over 1 billion children, and 17 million lives have been saved. The UK share of this is perhaps as much of 150 million children immunized and 2 million lives saved. As a former famous French Prime Minister said, to govern is to choose. We chose Gavi. Why? Because it's an organization that delivers. It's an organization that innovates. And above all, it's an organization that is doing the right thing. It turned the whole model of vaccines upside down. In the past, it was how much money can we raise, how many vaccines does that mean we buy, and then how many vaccines we can deliver. With Gavi, it was almost the other way around. Look at our purchasing power. Let's use that to drive down the price of vaccines and deliver them across the world. And so I think now, given that Gavi has been going since the year 2000, it's 13 years on from that 2011 conference, we shouldn't just think of the lives saved, We can start thinking about the lives that have been lived. We can think of the teachers standing in front of full classrooms and teaching, the doctors in hospital wards carrying out operations, the businessmen and businesswomen starting companies and employing people. All those people living lives, creating talent, giving, instead of lying in child graves because they've lost their life to a totally preventable disease. And there is a broader argument here, and José Manuel made it brilliantly in his opening speech. We're often told we live in a world where multilateral cooperation isn't working, where globalization is in retreat, where the rules are rigged in favor of the West and the order doesn't work. Well, I just briefly make this point. I don't want to stray too politically. But where are the people who make this argument? I don't want to single out more than is absolutely necessary one country. But over the last 5 years, Putin's Russia has given $10 million to this organization. The United Kingdom has given over £1.65 billion. That is 200 times the amount. So when we get lectures about how the rules-based order doesn't work, about how international cooperation doesn't work, about how countries don't live up to their expectations, let's make sure everybody lives up to their expectations. I think one of the ways you'll raise these $9 billion is making sure we go to all the countries that have the wealth and ability to make those donations. And alongside the extraordinary pledge by the Americans and the pledge I know we'll make, it may not be me, I hope it is. But even if it isn't, the money has been put aside. The money is ready for Gavi. And I can promise a pledge, maybe not quite as generous as the First Lady, but I can promise the pledge will be, for our size, every bit as good. The other reason for being here, apart from those 17 million reasons, is what did the pandemic teach us? The pandemic taught us that it was a truly global phenomenon, that no one is safe until everyone is safe. Of course, you can slow down the spread. You can prepare as well as you can. You can stop flights coming into your country. You can try to restrict the spread of a pandemic. But ultimately, the argument you can pull up the drawbridge and pretend you can be safe at home simply doesn't work. And that is why we so strongly welcome the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator. It makes sense. It is essential to build capacity for vaccine production in all markets and across all continents. And the United Kingdom is today making a pledge of $60 million towards this accelerator. The truth is this: when the next pandemic hits, even if our leaders in the rich Western countries are angels, the pressure to hold on to your own vaccines for your own people is always going to be irresistible. Even if you're a cross between Einstein, Wittgenstein, and Mother Teresa, you're still going to find it hard to give out those vaccines. And that is why essential we build capacity in Africa. We help African countries do that and all over the world. And by the way, let's make sure we put some capacity in smaller countries rather than bigger countries. You put capacity in Singapore or put it in Rwanda, they can vaccinate their population in just a few days. And then the rest of their production can go to the rest of the world. And as I say, this is just the start. We want to see the Gavi pledging conference to raise that $9 billion. We're still at 0.5% of our gross national income in aid. I'm proud we reached 0.7. We will get back there again, and I make it my mission to make sure we do. And I want to make one final point, if I can. Almost all of us, particularly in perhaps Western and European countries, we are dealing with the consequences of populist upheaval and disruption in our politics. The pull-up the drawbridge argument is made, not just in terms of vaccines or in aid, it's also made in terms of trade, it's made in terms of openness, it's made in terms of helping other countries that are struggling or being invaded by their neighbors. And we have to fight this pull-up the drawbridge tendency. Of course, we can in some cases simply rebut the arguments that are being made. We can, of course, address the symptoms that have caused this populist upheaval, whether that is inequality, whether it is the need to tackle illegal migration. Some are even proposing to go farther and say it's time to put some of these populists in decision-making positions as they are in Holland, and they have to make actual choices rather than just deal in rhetoric. It might be a bit too much for me. The answer, though, I'm sure, is a mixture of these things. We are practical people, but we should never make the mistake of leaving the passion, leaving the idealism to those who peddle these pull-up-the-drawbridge myths. It was over 104 years ago that William Butler Yeats said, "The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." And support for Gavi, we should never forget, is born from an idealism, born from a passion for a better and a kinder world. Not just in the outcome that we seek of all those lives saved and all that potential fulfilled, but also in the incredible innovation and entrepreneurialism that it has fostered. So yes, we must always show that we moderates are moderate in our language, we are moderate in our disposition, but we lack nothing in passion for the innovation and the good things that this can achieve. It's been an extraordinary program of building an institution that has saved those 17 million lives. And in this way, I believe we can do the right thing and take our people with us at the same time. Thank you.
Merci Lord Cameron pour ce discours puissant.
Thank you, Lord Cameron, for that very powerful speech and that irresistible sense of humour of yours. The UK is one of the leading donors of Gavi, and the UK's commitment to vaccination and international aid is stronger than ever. Now I'd like to hand over to Chrysila Zacharopoulou, who's Minister of State for Development and International Partnerships for France. She is going to lead a roundtable on accelerating innovation for vaccine sovereignty and immunisation. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. Welcome to Paris. It is a great honor for me to be with you today. Allow me, Excellency, President of Senegal, President of Ghana, Emmanuel Antonio Sanya, Dr. Tedros. I am delighted because health is about trust. Now, I think that through these initiatives, to these events, these meetings, we can see that we need each other. So allow me to, in particular, thank the CEO of Gavi, dear Sanya, for your leadership. Now, David Cameron gave us a wonderful speech with a strong pledge from the UK. The President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, recalled that together we have come from a long way, and we have drawn lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. And Europe and France took action right from the beginning of the pandemic to ensure equitable access to vaccines through the COVAX mechanism. And I had the honor of co-hosting the mechanism, and I worked alongside Gavi every day, but also with African partners and with the members of Europe, and that is a source of pride for me. 4 years later, we're entering a new key stage to build health sovereignty on the African continent and to bolster equity and access to vaccines. We are calling this AVMA, so the Accelerator for Access to Vaccines Manufacturing in Africa. And again, this would not be possible without Gavi, and I'd like to commend Gavi. Since its creation 20 years ago, the Vaccine Alliance has showed its capacity to bring down vaccine costs and to deploy vaccination to those that most need it. But it's also shown us how it can shape markets to encourage innovation, but also to diversify supply of vaccines and to maintain resilient supply chains. Now, none of this would have been possible without political ambition and the determined action of the African Union, and in particular of the African Centers for Disease Control, Africa CDC, dear Jean. in co-building this innovative and ambitious tool. Thank you for these 18 months of close collaboration. Allow me to pay tribute to the involvement of the European Commission as well, of the member states, of the EU, and of all Team Europe partners that ever since this summit between the EU and the African Union in February 2022 under French presidency have consistently supported AVMA to make it a reality. Europe as a power, or should I say Europe as a partnership power. This Europe has an ambition to contribute to the co-industrialization and to the co-development of the African continent. And AVMA is a great example of that. AVMA will play a central role in supporting industrial manufacturing of vaccines, of course, through advance market guarantees and financial support for vaccine development, but also in introducing new vaccines against diseases that particularly affect Africa, such as cholera, polio, measles, rubella, malaria, HPV, and tuberculosis. But also, it will play a central role in supporting this global movement on the African continent and in consolidating a robust ecosystem. AVMA will take action on the supply end, but we must also act on the demand side. Indeed, it will ensure predictable and sustainable demand for vaccines manufactured in Africa. So, in parallel, we also need to build a conducive environment. Human resources, R&D, strengthened health regulations, and France and Team Europe are particularly committed to that. Lastly, we must keep up our mobilization towards universal health coverage for primary health care, including vaccination. It is essential in order to sustainably reinforce our health systems. I am delighted to open this session in which our panelists will share their views on AVMA opportunities with ambitious pledges that have already been made by some and hopefully new pledges that I hope to see today. We'll also look at how we can collectively take on these challenges and look at how innovation can lead us to a future in which each nation is sovereign, even in the face of pandemics, and in which every child is protected against preventable diseases. So I wish you fruitful discussions. And now I'm going to hand back to the moderator. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Minister. So now I would like to call on for this panel the following: Anne-Marie Megese from AfriVac, Gavi CSO Steering Committee. Please sit here. I think you might be speaking French. Furthermore, Thomas Triumph, Executive VP Vaccines, Sanofi. Mr. Stavros Nicolaou, Senior Executive responsible for Strategic Trade Development at Aspen. And Dr. Amadou Sall, Director of the Dakar Pasteur Institute, Chair of the Pasteur Network. Qui est-ce qui manque? Amadou Sall
is making an innovative contribution, helping to deliver vaccine equity and vaccine sovereignty. In this session, we will delve into how innovation has served as a catalyst in elevating immunization rates and advancing our objective towards 2030. AVMA will be featured as a flagship innovative instrument. Well, permettez-moi tout d'abord.
So first, let me first ask Anne-Marie Nbengese, so Director General of AfriVac and representative of CEO, sorry, yet another acronym, so for policy and programs at Gavi. So we've seen a global rise of hesitancy when it comes to vaccination. So how can CSOs help with that? Do you see, a role to be played by CSOs to support vaccination? And what about in that with relation to AVMA? You have about 3 minutes. Thank you. First, I would like to say good morning to everyone here and to my president. I am from Senegal, Your Excellency, President of the Republic. You have greetings of the civil society of Senegal. As you know, Africa has a very dynamic civil society that for years now, in the 90s, when the broadened vaccination campaign was launched, has a strong role in promoting vaccine uptake. And beyond technical assistance that is provided by civil society, furthermore, we have led awareness-raising campaigns to increase community engagement. We have also identified children eligible for vaccination, for instance. I would like to introduce you to civil society in Africa. So essentially, we see professionals at all levels. So, for instance, bank directors. I formerly directed a bank, but also all the way to, cleaners or carpenters that can see for themselves the problems and that want to give back to their communities and therefore become entrepreneurs, non-profit entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs. That is what civil society looks like, of course, alongside major international NGOs that support health programs on the continent. And with COVID, we had to grapple with an environment in which trust in governments and institutions was eroded and, in fact, collapsed at times. And so in this context of disinformation and loss of trust, we felt that it was necessary to become an ideal partner in order to build back that trust. And we took on this role in the field with communities. For instance, WAVA in Nigeria bolstered the capacities of over 1,000 women to advocate for vaccinations in COVID. For instance, in Senegal, what we call district godmothers. So these are women that identify children and promote vaccination for those children. In the DRC, an international NGO strengthened the capacities of over 100 women that in 5 months identified 2,000 children that had never been vaccinated. So these are just a few examples of what the community of civil society can do in this era. So within the framework of AVMA, we have anticipated our strategy. So what we are going to do is to create a trust climate within communities with most vulnerable populations and promote the use of these vaccinated that will have been manufactured in Africa. So our role will be to identify champions. And as civil society here, I'm going to ask here the President of State. And Excellency, with your permission, I would like for the First Lady of Senegal, just like every other First Ladies, make pledges, commit to AVMA to ensure it to be a success on the demand side. And civil society, again, has played that role with identifying champions, so champions for mobilization. We also have champions for demand, and so we're counting on you for that. Lastly, we have recruited opinion leaders, religious leaders as well, because target populations must have a communication that is in line with their culture, with their values, with their beliefs. And the message that they receive, that these mums, these dads, that our brothers and sisters receive, be in their mother tongue, in a language that they can understand, so that there is no miscommunication. We are going to bring this message to government level so that commitment to buy vaccines is upheld. And we did that at the World Health Organization Assembly, and we hope that the 50 million babies that are born each year in Africa will be our first customers, the first clients of this industry. And I know that the Pasteur Institute representative will continue my advocacy. Thank you, thank you. Please, a round of applause. Now over to Thomas Triumph from Sanofi. So Sanofi is a partner of the Gavi Vaccine Alliance right from the start. So on the basis of your experience, your long experience, how has Sanofi innovated to meet countries' needs, countries with which Gavi works, and how can Sanofi continue to innovate and to drive forward vaccination in Africa? I'm
also have 3 minutes in French or English.
Absolutely. For full respect with my partner BioVac, who is there in the room from South Africa, and which I'm going to talk about in a second. Let me start with the second part of your question. Basically, what is Sanofi doing to continue to innovate, as well as to pledge and commit to African vaccine manufacturing? Let's be very clear. If I'm here today, it's to share Sanofi's pledge. Sanofi is pledging today to playing its part in African vaccine manufacturing capability acceleration. We want to strengthen the long-standing relationship we've had and partnership we've had with more than 20 years now with BioVac. More than 20 years partnership, not 3 years ago, not 5 years ago. Together, we decided to extend our collaboration, and we are going to announce the manufacturing of inactivated polio vaccine drug product in South Africa. BioVac, therefore, will become the first manufacturer to be able to manufacture inactivated polio vaccine on the African continent. This is directly making a strong contribution to the fight of Africa towards polio eradication, from Africa, for Africa. But let me be clear, we won't stop there. As a trustable partner, again, not for 3 years, but for more than 2 decades, in the present and in the future, we will keep exploring and building new additional partnerships of manufacturing in Africa for new vaccines. We're open to business. Additionally, R&D is also extremely important. We want to make sure that we bring innovation that meets the needs of the population in Africa. That's why I'd like to confirm today that we are going to continue the investment in the development of a next generation of yellow fever vaccines. It will be the first ever produced with a cell culture process. Why does it matter? Because yellow fever is a good example of climate-sensitive disease expansion today, and we need new tools. This next generation yellow fever vaccines will enable sustainable and reliable robust supply, not only for routine immunization in Africa, but also for stockpiles for outbreak controls that are so required. So this innovative production process with VeroCell technology will significantly also reduce the environmental footprint of vaccine manufacturing, which is another important cause in Africa. Finally, and as importantly, this next generation yellow fever new vaccine will be, of course, made available and affordable to low middle income countries and to Gavi 6.0.
Thank you. Well done. Please. Now, Mr. Stavros Nicolaou, Senior Executive Responsible for Strategic Trade Development, Aspen Pharmacare Group. You are a Senior Executive at Aspen Pharmacare. As one of the largest African pharmaceutical manufacturers, Aspen recently turned its hand to vaccine manufacturing. We would love to hear you about your experience of this transition. Please.
Thank you very much, and let me firstly commence by both commending and thanking the government and the people of France, particularly in the form of His Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, the tireless Minister Chrysoula Zakharopoulou, seated in front of me here, the leadership of Gavi, WHO, and in particular Africa CDC, represented by Dr. Jean Kaseya. This is a landmark announcement today, but it would be remiss of me not to remind us that during COVID, a bright and uncomfortable spotlight was shone on the vast health and resource inequalities that exist in our world. Unnecessary lives and livelihoods were lost in Africa, and as a consequence, Africa had to make a plan to develop its own vaccine and therapeutic capabilities and capacities. I'm afraid to say, because you said transitioning earlier, that very little progress has been achieved in bridging these vast inequalities. My case in point is the Mpox as we sit here today. So given the global call to arms, Aspen responded positively, pivoting significant parts of our sterile capacities and capabilities and allocating these towards COVID vaccine manufacture. Regrettably, however, there was no orders for these COVID vaccines at the time. Let's move on to today. The AVMA, African Vaccine Manufacturers Accelerator, is an important instrument in assisting Africa in building its vaccine capacities and is an important first step in accelerating vaccine production in achieving this elusive vaccine equality and independence on our continent. So in commending the Gavi leadership today in this bold initiative, let us also not forget that sustainable African vaccine producers with volumes through facilities is what will decisively lead to this equality and independence being achieved in our lifetime. So as I draw to conclusion, of course, Aspen will continue to serve the continent and its ambition of a new public order for Africa through our advanced manufacturing technologies, which today at Aspen includes the production of insulins and other specialized pharmaceuticals. Accordingly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we embrace AVMA today as a lever to accelerating the building of capacities on our continent. But we are also hopeful that this will swiftly unlock orders and procurement from African producers in line with Africa's vision and ambition of moving from the present paltry 1% of vaccine production on the continent to 30% by 2030 and to 60% by 2040. We remain focused on these targets and look forward to working with every single partner in this room as Aspen in optimizing the AVMA package and accelerating vaccine demand and volumes through the gates and facilities of all accredited African pharmaceutical producers. I thank you for this opportunity and look forward to Africa realizing vaccine equality and health security in our lifetime. Health security equals global peace and security. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Monsieur Nicolaou. C'est à nous, Dr. Amadou Sall. Alors.
Over to us, Amadou Sall. So you have to be even shorter than the rest of the speakers because we are running out of time. So you are director of the Dakar Pasteur Institute, chair of the Pasteur Network. So the Dakar Institute was a pioneer in vaccine manufacturing on the continent. So according to you, what are the next steps to ensure that sovereignty and innovation in vaccination is expanded in Africa and contributes to the global security agenda, which we are talking about since this morning? As briefly as possible, please. Thank you. Thank you for your question. So first of all, when it comes to sovereignty and future, the Dakar Pasteur Institute, as you recalled, for 50 years now, has been working on yellow fever in Africa. And working on end-to-end vaccination manufacturing. So this manufacturing is end-to-end, and it's pre-qualified by WHO because that's how you can access global programs. So this experience has been capitalized upon, and today we have expanded capacity within the new hub that has been announced by President Faye. But also, looking to the future, we've been working on innovation. So the partnership with the Gates Foundation has enabled us to work on the availability, the mRNA vaccine for the yellow fever vaccine. But furthermore, we have a stem cell culture program for innovating in vaccines. So these are vaccines that are part of Gavi priorities, but they will also lead us to promote innovation. And just to be very brief, when we do this work, it's important to have a collective approach. And this collective approach it can be reflected in partner support. And I'd like to thank our partners, particularly France and the AFD, that has supported us for many years now, but also AFC, Germany, DFC, the Gates Foundation, MasterCard. And secondly, it's important to work as a network. And the Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria are partners of the Dakar Institute. And to wrap up, this collective approach means that when we are part of such endeavors, as governments, we must work in collaboration with CSOs and other partners. So it's this collective, holistic approach that I would like to convey, and AVMA will precisely through this opportunity dedicated to manufacturing vaccines in Africa, should be able to let us sustainably meet this agenda through CDC Africa to reach 60% by 2040. Thank you very much. Thank you to you four for your input. Please go back to your seats, and thank you very much. Now I would like to...
The Deputy Prime Minister of Italy and Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation to come to the stage. Deputy Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Madame.
Thank you, Minister. Italy. In Italy, health is a global issue, and Italian commitment to Africa is a priority. As you know, we have already organized an Italy-Africa summit. We decided to, through the Mattei plan for Italian commitment to Africa, we tend to try to look at Africa not through European or Italian lenses, but through an African lens. So for us, Africa is a crucial partner, and this is why that we need to continue to fight alongside Africa to win these battles against diseases. We also need to combat climate change, poverty, terrorism. We need to fight together. And these are issues that we must approach with a global voice. So health in Africa at the G7 was discussed, that I chaired in Capri. The G7 with the head of state and government, with Giorgia Meloni in Burginazia a few days ago. It was also a topic on the table. So this goes to show that we want to give hope and spur growth for our African partners. We are seeking greater stability around the world, and to do that we need to work together. We know that Africa will, in 2050, will have 2.5 billion inhabitants, which is why we need to really commit to invest in vaccines, especially for young people, because looking ahead to the future, we need to make sure that young people today have robust health. I'm here to reiterate Italy's support to Gavi, and when it comes to COVID showed us how important international cooperation and combating pandemic is, how essential it is. And so, good news, Italy has decided to contribute $100 million to AVMA, and so $150 million to AVMA in Africa. Indeed, vaccines will be more reliable if they are driven by African manufacturers, because we are willing to export our experience, our expertise, and we hope through that to support sovereignty in this area. And as you know, we have a very strong pharmaceutical industry that's at the avant-garde. So we stand ready to do everything we can to support local manufacturing of vaccines in Africa. Furthermore, we need to use the Mate plan to support new economic partnerships, for instance, in the pharmaceutical industry. That is crucial, as I said. The strategy for new partnerships with Africa that the government launched in January at the summit between Italy and Africa in Rome. So this is a vision that we want to be a part of the European, the broader European strategy, with strong and bold commitment, the pillars of which are training through collaboration between African and Italian universities, and in the health industry as well. So, as I said, Italian excellence, Italian know-how will be put to at the service of research and innovation. So PPPs are key. International companies are investing increasingly in Italy because they find high-level industry, high-level universities that can meet their needs. So we want to encourage investment in avant-garde research, for instance, biotechnology and life sciences, cutting-edge technology, namely in the medical sector and in diagnostics, in artificial intelligence, a key issue linked to, again, innovative treatments. So we need ethical AI that is human-centered. So again, together, we need to smartly handle these innovations to promote growth and development and guarantee a different future. So health is key in doing that, in bolstering the link between ourselves, friends, Europeans, Italians, Africans, because we know what young people health issues look like, vaccination, and so we know exactly what to do. We share concerns. We stand ready to do everything required to support Gavi, which is why I have invited my dear friend José Manuel Barroso. I was vice chair of the European Commission when he was in Brussels in another position, and he was a special guest at the G7 summit on international cooperation that will be held in Pescara in October. And that is it from me. As you know, and everyone knows this, I support Juventus, so I support your husband because he plays for my favorite team, which is why I am trying to keep to your time limits today. Thank you very much.
Merci pour ce forum mondial.
Thank you for this message. I will pass it on. Thank you very much. And thank you for reminding us of leadership. And Italian champion in the family, that's a topic of the day, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for having reminded us of leadership of Italy in the G7 and Italy's commitment to serve Africa. I'm sorry, I'm a bit perturbed because you mentioned my husband, so let's move on to the very short video from Medicine Patent Pool on the technology of technology transfer.
Initiative. I think this is very important for South countries and low and middle income countries to prove that we could do this for the world.
The mRNA Technology Transfer Program is a global initiative aiming to empower low and middle income countries. The goal is to allow them to make their own vaccines and to build capacity for quality manufacturing. Its core concept is empowerment.
I just want to share with you that I'm really honored and proud to be a part of this project because I strongly believe that I contribute to the advancement of this technology and play a role in developing of new vaccines, not only for infectious diseases, but also for cancer treatment or genetic disorders.
15 companies across the world have been selected by the World Health Organization to receive the training and technology.
We're going to deep dive also more in the opportunities that the mRNA technology presents for other diseases, not just COVID, such as HIV, TB, malaria.
Government engagement is crucial, not only to fight the pandemic, but also for the sustainability of business for the vaccine manufacturers.
In the long run, we would like to have this mRNA technology for our high priority infection like malaria, TB, dengue, and that it's supported by our government.
Whatever is done elsewhere, we can do, and even better. We have the expertise, we have the willingness, and we have the support that we need from the policymakers to make vaccine manufacturing, vaccine R&D a reality in Africa.
It was important to share this video with you. We will now hear a series of friends and people close to Gavi, all specialists in their field. We'll start by Makta Diop, Director General of the International Financial Corporation. Makta Diop, you have the floor, please. Director General of IFC. Good morning, everyone. I'm supposed to read a speech in English, but I believe it would be a bit of a problem to do so in English. I will be speaking French, and I will, well, 50-50.
Among the founders of Gavi, so we've been there from the beginning, accompanying you, supporting this initiative, because we believe in it. And since then, our work together has been producing the results that we have seen. We have been working with countries from the inception. We have here a great leader, Mohamed Pate, Sal, other ministers, Awa Marie Kolsek, who was Minister for Health in Senegal. All these have been great leaders who have been developing strategies that were supported by Gavi and by us, the international community. It's a good example of financing common because we have been able to work together and put our resources. When we had this crisis, we've been able to develop instruments to be able to make resources available to country on an accelerated way. We developed for the World Bank what we call the MPA, which were a program where resources were put together quickly to country. so that they can buy the necessary vaccine and product. But on the production side, we did something very different. We engaged with countries in the production. So IFC was very proud to be associated with Aspen. We were financial of Aspen at the middle of the crisis. We are working currently with BioVac, and tomorrow I think that we'll be able to announce something. We have been also working with Institut Pasteur, being one of their financiers, as well as the Rwandese. So on the ecosystem of vaccine production in Africa, IFC is at the center is a partner which is central. But the question that was raised by Aspen is a very important question. To sustain that production on the continent, we need to ensure that the demand is there. And today, the producers of vaccine in the continent are facing that challenge. Are they receiving enough demand, enough orders to be able to sustain their production? So I think that the conversations that we'll be having in these coming days, and that's why the support to Gavi is so important, is that we need to sustain the demand so that production in Africa is sustainable and not become white elephants, to be crude and real. This is one of the risks that we are facing today, that this production is in place, people invest, but the demand is not there. So supporting Gavi for us is central to that exercise. If you don't support Gavi, if you don't help government to strengthen the health system, we will not be able to do the vaccination that is needed for people to move forward. So this is the purpose, and tomorrow we are convening a roundtable where we'll be doing some deep dive and having practical discussion about what needs to be done, and have a conversation with the practitioners and the government to look at not necessarily what works, what doesn't work. Because it's good to talk about what works, but it's better to talk about what doesn't work so that we can get to our goals. Thanks so much. Merci.
He felt the pressure. Thank you. Now let's hear from Dr. Morena Makoana, CEO of BioVac, please. It was very good in English. Anyway.
Thank you very much. I was hoping to be as excellent as Marta in terms of speaking French. However, I think I need to take some lessons. Dear Excellencies, our ministers and our presidents that have now departed, and our heads of international institutions, WHO, Africa CDC, and in particular Gavi, thank you very much for this invitation. We are very humbled by what we heard from President Macron much earlier today about the support, particularly to cholera disease and to our organization. We're very, very humbled, and we're actually not even expecting that. So I really want to thank the government of France for assisting in the pledge to the fight against cholera. Around cholera, we've been developing cholera vaccine, and I just want to re-emphasize that we are on track in terms of our development, and we're extremely committed in making sure that we participate and in terms of end-to-end vaccine manufacture of cholera vaccine in order for us to be able to supply Gavi through the UNICEF and its various structures. Secondly, I'd like to take this opportunity to also announce for the first time publicly that we've just concluded a partnership with our friends from South Korea, a company U Biologicals, from which you'll hear later on, for the transfer and manufacture of their 5-valent meningococcal vaccine as a further solution to outbreaks in Africa. Lastly, I'd just like to emphasize our long-standing relationship from Sanofi. You heard from Thomas. So I think it's quite important as you see this that as African vaccine manufacturers collectively, it's a long game. We need to work hard, but we also need the long-standing partnerships that you've heard today, and we really treasure those, and we need to make sure that we play our part in exercising that. Lastly, I'd also like to acknowledge our own president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was just inaugurated yesterday for his second term, because he was the AU champion when this all started. So I'd also like to acknowledge our own president. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will turn now to Mrs. Farah Losper, Board Chair of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Initiative, or AVMI this time. AVMI, yes.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Excellencies, partners, ladies and gentlemen. I've promised the Gavi team that I will be very quick, so I won't take too much of your time. AVMI really welcomes this opportunity today to share a call to action As we launch the Gavi AVMA, it's really critical that we consider this as a catalyst and that we leverage the opportunity that we have right now for ecosystem change to drive sustainable vaccine manufacturing that is not only competitive but drives innovation. Our vision, of course, is ultimately to establish end-to-end vaccine manufacturing capabilities on the continent, moving beyond just fill and finish to full spectrum vaccine production. But what this really needs is partnership that recognizes the opportunities that the continent presents. Partnerships between governments, international organizations, donors, and the private sector. Furthermore, we need strong policy frameworks and regulatory environments that support our collective vision. We need alignment between political will and policy. I think I can't emphasize that enough. Regional cooperation amongst African nations and preference for African manufactured vaccines and therapeutics is vital for pooling demand, harmonizing standards, economies of scale, while partnerships with international organizations and donors are critical to strengthening capacity building and production development. I think to conclude, our aim is to create a resilient vaccine manufacturing ecosystem that not only addresses immediate needs, but also contributes to long-term economic development and improved health outcomes. So the ask today is let us commit to acting now to transforming Africa into a hub of innovation and excellence in vaccine manufacturing, ensuring a self-reliant and sustainable future for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much. It is now time to hear an important message, video message from one of Gavi's founding architects, Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and a leader who has such a huge and positive influence over Gavi since its establishment. Listen to it.
Your Excellencies, distinguished co-hosts, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today, and thank you all for your leadership in global health. People often ask me to name the best investment I've ever made, and the answer is very simple. It's the funding the Gates Foundation has given to Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Gavi is the Gates Foundation's single largest grantee. Alongside with partners, we helped found it in the year 2000, the same year that the Gates Foundation was started. Since that year, primarily due to vaccines, the number of children who die before their 5th birthday has been cut in half. Polio has been nearly eradicated. That's a generation of many millions of lives saved thanks to vaccines and thanks to the support of countless partners. Gavi has the most proven track record in all of foreign aid. That's why, historically, donations have steadily increased each year. Yet today, we're seeing a huge challenge in aid for global health. We need to maintain our commitment in this area. The last time Gavi went through replenishment was in 2020. And of course, during that time with the pandemic, people understood the importance of vaccines. Even in rich countries, vaccines were needed to save millions of lives. It's one thing for the rich countries to fund these global health efforts when their populations are directly affected, but now we're going back and asking them to show their leadership by either maintaining or increasing their support when the developing countries are the ones who are still suffering. Most kids are born in countries where pneumonia and diarrheal disease kill far more children than COVID ever did. For them, this deep inequity and the need has never gone away. In fact, with their growing population and challenges, it's only intensified. The pandemic caused extreme poverty to rise for the first time in a generation. It tested health systems, and in fact, it kind of plateaued the progress we've made on reducing deaths. So we have to go back, helping these health systems recover and get back on that incredible rate of improvement. Gavi worked closely with countries and other partners to strengthen the primary healthcare system to make sure that all children, even in remote areas, get all of these vaccines. The HPV vaccine, which is being added, can prevent a whole generation of girls from getting and dying of cervical cancer. So that's kind of a miracle that that's being added. The price that Gavi pays for vaccines is constantly going down. That's through a partnership with the Gates Foundation, where we're making sure that many manufacturers have low-cost capability and that we get competitive bidding, and that opens up money so that we've been able to add new vaccines. You know, this is an incredible endeavor. The vaccines mean that kids are healthy, they can go to school, they can develop their mental and physical potential, and give back to their communities. The Gates Foundation is proud to support Gavi in many ways. One of those is through donations to the Gavi Matching Fund. And so I'm excited to announce an additional commitment today of $30 million to that fund. The importance of vaccines will continue to grow in the future. The Gates Foundation is spending billions on the creation of new vaccines for HIV, for tuberculosis, even better malaria vaccines with long duration. And so Gavi will be the way that all the children of the world and all the people of the world have access to those new inventions. So Gavi really, really pays off. We know it works. We measure the outcomes very carefully. Thanks to all of you for your commitment to this amazing endeavor. Global health is a very important, very hopeful area, and so it's exciting that we're carrying it forward. Thank you.
This was Bill Gates. And we will now hear from one of the firms in the vanguard of this movement. I give the floor to Dr. Tripathi, CEO of Atlantic Life Science Limited. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Excellency, the President of Ghana, the Board Chairman, Gavi, and the CEO, Gavi, the ambassadors, the DG Africa CDC, heads of international organizations and partners. Atlantic Life Sciences Limited, together with Innovax, is pleased to announce a strategic collaboration with Innovax Biotech to locally produce the HPV vaccine in Ghana. This partnership aligns with the new Gavi AVMA, African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator program, which aims to enhance vaccine manufacturing in Africa. As part of this collaboration, Atlantic Life Sciences Limited and Innovax Biotech will localize part of the production of the HPV vaccine at Atlantic facility and advancing for WHO pre-qualifications. The government of Ghana is fully supportive of local manufacturing and has established a National Vaccine Institute to provide the necessary assistance. In parallel to this tech transfer, Ghana's Food and Drugs Authority aims to rapidly complete its journey towards WHO maturity level 3 for vaccine production. This collaboration between Atlantic Life Sciences and Innovax Biotech represents a significant milestone in the global effort to eliminate cervical cancer. By establishing an African pipeline for the HPV vaccine, the partnership will protect the women's health and advance the goal of eradicating cervical cancer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will now hear from Dr. Baik, CEO of U Biologics. Please, come join us. Technically join me, but no, we're many.
Thank you for introduction. It's a great honor for me to be here, good forum. U-Biologics is proud to be a leading global supplier of cholera vaccines. Our new cholera vaccine, UBCOL-S, developed in partnership with the International Vaccine Institute, was pre-qualified in April this year. UBCOL-S is a significant product innovation. It is a new formulation that simplifies the manufacturing process, resulting in higher capacity and lower production cost. U-Biologics has invested in a new facility that was pre-qualified in May this year also. By switching to UBCOL-S and using the new facility, these two investments mean that U-Biologics will double overall capacity over 2 years, which increasing the availability of our supply of OCV amid the ongoing surge of global cholera outbreaks. And as Dr. Makona from BioVac just announced, U-Biologics is delighted to be collaborating with BioVac on the manufacture of our candidate pentavalent meningococcal conjugate vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have just witnessed Gavi at its best, blending finance and innovation and shaping markets for sustainable impact. This now closes our session. Please join me to thank our speakers for their captivating wisdom and thrilling announcement, please. I now invite to the stage His Excellency Dr. Jean Kaseya, Dr. General for the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Kaseya, you have the floor. Where are you? You come from there. Okay, thank you.
I will not do like Magda. I will speak in French because I'm Francophone and we are in France. Excellence.
Excellencies, dear colleagues and partners, today is a great day for Africa. Thanks to this event for the replenishment of the Gavi Fund. And I would like to thank my friend José Manuel Barroso and my friend Sania for the work they have done to develop the strategic 2025-2030 plan, which is the basis of our work. Let me remind you why we are here today. Why does Africa, through my voice, demand for that? Because 70% of the Gavi resources are targeted to Africa. When we say that, it means nothing. Allow me to be clearer. Between the year 2000 and 2022, Gavi has invested around $12 billion, which has allowed to save 11 million lives. People that should have died prematurely without immunization. And I would like to express my recognition to President Macron and the French people, who hosts not only this replenishment event, but also for launching a very strong message to the different donors and partners for more solidarity and more commitment in the financing of Gavi. Excellencies, this financing will also contribute to reduce the gap and increase fairness and equity. We are launching AVMA today, which will allow us between now and 2040 to produce 60% of our vaccines in Africa. This is a vision that our heads of states, as some have reminded you today, our heads of states have developed for Africa. Because AVMA is for Africa. To me, this is an only political launch. The real launch of AVMA will be done on African soil. So very soon, Africa's CDC will organize a launching ceremony for AVMA in Africa for our African leaders, our partners, NGOs, and the African community, and we will all celebrate together this great moment. Excellency, our vision is not restricted only to the production of vaccines locally, but also covers the production of drugs, diagnostic, and other health products in this new health public health order. We have always said that local production of medical products in Africa is the second independence movement of Africa because it contributes to our health, safety, the creation of jobs. It strengthens our economies and is a tool of peace and security. We have all read, and I here salute my friend whom I've seen who manages the One Health campaign. We've all read the communique of the 13th of June of One Health campaign that was published in the margin of the G7 meeting in Rome, and which shows that the share of total G7 help and EU help to Africa is the weakest since 1973. And I would like to remind you also what my friend and colleague, Dr. Tedros, said a month ago, and I quote him.
23, the military expenditure globally increased 6.8%, and the total annual expenditure now is $2.4 trillion. And he said, this doesn't show lack of money. This shows that priority is to kill each other and not to save lives. Cela signifie.
All this means that we could have resources and use them differently. And I would also like to call everyone here to fight, not to fight to kill other people, but to fight against the antimicrobial resistance, which kills in Africa today more than HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria put together. And I was speaking to my friend Peter Sand in order to widen the mandate of the Global Fund, but also to give more finances to the Global Fund and Gavi to fight against that terrible disease. And as we are speaking about resources, we are not here to ask, but we are also here to contribute. And as the President Kagame said, we use our governments and our private sectors to give even more money. And I would like to make a major announcement today. And if you go on our websites, Africa CDC, the information is already published. Africa CDC and Africa Simbank have signed a historical partnership in order to give to $2 additional billion to the production of vaccines in Africa. And I would like to thank Africa Simbank, and more specifically my brother, Professor Orama, presented IDEPA's, his senior vice president, Ms. Kayano Ayani, for this important commitment, $2 million that will come to be added to $1 billion from AVMA, and this will make the difference. We spoke about cholera, and for many years, BioVac is looking for $40 million to finish the clinical trials. Now, with this money and with the contribution of President Macron, we are sure that within 2 years, Africa will be producing the cholera vaccine. And we would like to say as well that this money, with all the other initiatives, will contribute to make sure that Africa is really safe and secure. Through all those initiatives, we would like to say that this agenda for the second independence movement of Africa becomes a true reality. Thank you for your attention.
I would like Excellency Jutta Urpilainen, EU Commissioner for International Partnerships, please.
Your Excellencies, Honorable Presidents, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to participate in this game-changing event aimed at promoting health across Africa. And let me thank France for hosting it. COVID-19 crisis humbled us all. It claimed lives, undermined economic growth, and revealed deep-rooted inequalities. But we were quick to learn lessons from it. the EU and its member states came together as Team Europe to lead the response of the international community, together with key partners like Gavi. We soon realized that in addition to dealing with the acute crisis, it would be vital to boost Africa's health resilience in long term. We made it our mission to support Africa's effort to manufacture health products in their continent. I would like to make 3 brief points. First, I am confident that today's launch of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator will accelerate the growth of Africa's pharmaceutical sector and boost equitable access to quality health products. I applaud Gavi for designing it, and I'm proud to say that Team Europe is its main financial partner. I can proudly announce that the European Commission is contributing $233 million to AVMA. And dear friends, this brings the total Team Europe contribution to over $800 million. AVMA is complementary to Team Europe's broader commitment to health manufacturing for Africa in Africa. And actually, this brings me to my second point. Through cooperation and with the World Health Organization and African, European and international partners, Team Europe is implementing an ambitious initiative called Manufacturing and Access to Vaccines, Medicines and Health Technologies, or MAV+ for short. Our MAV+ efforts focus on cultivating the right environment for the production and uptake of health products and innovations, with 3 pillars: a regulatory framework, offer, and demand. If we count in today's contribution to AVMA, Team Europe has already mobilized over 2 billion euros in grants and loans under MAV+. And concrete results are emerging. Critical vaccines are being produced in South Africa. State-of-the-art manufacturing facilities are taking place in Rwanda and Senegal, and Ghana is poised to follow. As African vaccine and medicine manufacturing picks up pace, we need to ensure there is a sufficient demand for these products. And AVMA will help manufacturers get a decent price for their vaccines, ensuring an attractive and sustainable market for African-produced products. And this contributes to the 3rd pillar of our initiative. Finally, in order to promote health and well-being for all, we must also strengthen broader health systems and access to care. Team Europe is collaborating with the World Health Organization on various policies, such as the expansion of universal health coverage in partner countries. Team Europe is also the largest contributor to the Pandemic Fund, which strengthens pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response capacities. We recently launched 4 innovative Team Europe initiatives with African partners. We aim to improve health security, support public health institutions, boost digital health, and strengthen social protection systems. Colleagues, through continued partnership and through continued innovation, we can deliver better long-term health and well-being for all leaving no one behind. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, for your generous pledge. It's a big step towards our fundraising target. In this next segment, we will take a forward look to consider the road to the next billion children immunized and the efforts needed by the global community to ensure no child is left behind. It is my pleasure to invite to the stage the moderator of our next panel, Dr. Sania Nishtar, who will introduce the speakers and facilitate the discussion. Dr. Nishtar, please come back. The floor is yours again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be moderating this next session. Can we have the honor of having the panelists join us? His Excellency Muhammad Ali Pate, the Minister of Health of Nigeria, please join us. Your Excellency Malache Manauda, Minister of Health of Cameroon. Your Excellency Ahmed Roble Abdullah, Minister of Health of Djibouti. Welcome, very honored to have you with us. Your Excellency Naha Mukanas, Minister of Health of Mauritania. And lastly, I'd like to welcome the Chair of the Board of UNITAID, Marisol Torien. Well, welcome to this panel, and thank you for your time. Thank you for honoring us. I'd like to start with you, Mohammed. You heard a lot about accelerating impact. That's Gavi's aspiration. But that acceleration is, of course, in your hands. Let us know how that will be enabled.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Gavi. Thanks, France, and thanks for inviting us. I'm here representing the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Tinubu, who you met, and asked me to show up and actually support this effort. I think it's amazing what you've been able to achieve, what the Gavi Alliance has been able to achieve. For us in Nigeria, with 220 million population, much of which is youthful, with 8 million new birth cohort, you can imagine what portion of this goal that you have comprises of people, persons, children that are in Nigeria that will need to be vaccinated over time. At least 25% of what this aspiration that we have as a global community, I think, will come from what we do in Nigeria. This is in addition to the adolescents, to adults that will also receive vaccines, and we've seen the efforts that we've put together with your support on HPV, for instance, really translating into significant gains. More than 96% of the targeted multi-age cohort that were targeted in the second phase of our HPV vaccines were actually reached, 7.3 million girls. That's just the power, the possibility that we can achieve working together. For us, we have an agenda that is focused on improving the primary healthcare system, expanding the retail outlets to deliver those vaccines, to ensure we reduce the zero dose, to provide the protection that we know the miracle of vaccines can be able to provide to our children, but also to unlock the value chain, including the production of basic commodities, pharmaceuticals, biologicals, including vaccines, and other devices that are necessary to make those vaccines reach the populations that we have. As a minister over the last few months, I will say that some of the nervous moments I've had to do with outbreaks, whether it's diphtheria, measles, meningitis, or even this morning, suspected yellow fever. And vaccines are so critical, and the availability of those vaccines and the mechanism that you are launching here, I think will safeguard us in our own context, but also, I think, globally. But we need to produce them. And as we move forward for the 1 billion that we're targeting, I will just reflect on one thing, that we face an unprecedented challenge in terms of environment of distrust. The demarketing of vaccines. Yes, the tools are important, but the forces that are demarketing vaccines are a lot more organized. Sitting where I sit, I received more than 200 mini crises demarketing vaccines. And I'm not sure as a global community we have actually optimized our efforts to counter those demarketing efforts. And so for what we're doing in the context of our health security agenda is to organize a network within our country, Nigeria, a large country, but also to reach to other African countries so that we think differently how to counter market or reverse this aggressive demarketing. I think if there's one thing that I would like to leave us to think about going forward, yes, the tools are important, the manufacturing is important, the financing is important, the technical aspect of delivery is important. But from where I sit over the last few months, I think there's a relentless drive, most of it from outside Africa, demarketing the value of vaccines. And that is potentially going to undermine. And so manufacturing locally can help. And that's one thing that I think the CSO community also mentioned. So to the extent that decentralized manufacturing involve us in the research and development, the clinical trials, but also the manufacturing locally will help, but also remarket the value of vaccines. And that is a commitment that we in Nigeria are making, and we welcome Gavi and other alliance partners to join us. So that it's our voices that are actually marketing the value of vaccines, not voices necessarily from outside the continent, which at the moment, from what we see at the country level, those voices are lame. The most aggressive voices that we see coming into our countries are voices that are demarketing vaccines, not the ones that are marketing the value of vaccines. So we want to change that, and we would like to really work with you and others to change that dynamic. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mohammed, for that very important point, because we always talk about the technical aspects of execution and all the health systems challenges that you talked about, but we forget to factor into the equation this negative propaganda that we are really up against. So thank you for bringing that into the room. We hadn't heard much about it since this morning. But maybe we can go to you, Mr. Abdullah. Djibouti has been such a host, has been so generous. You've hosted so many migrants. You've institutionalized them. Do you get to confront the same negative propaganda? And more broadly, how are you responding to the health system's needs? How are you ensuring their access to vaccination? How are you ensuring that the equity principle is upheld for those very marginalized segments of the population?
Merci. Thank you very much, Presidents, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I think the outbreak of COVID-19 caused many very difficult problems for African countries and elsewhere in the world. I myself was health minister during this period, and I can tell you it was a very tough time. It was very difficult to carry that burden. A burden of this scourge of COVID-19. And we, African countries, had to respond. Djibouti had to respond. We had to reform our system. We had to get ready for a new pandemic, because there will be others. Djibouti is a small country, a transit country. When you add the refugees and migrants to our population, plus these vulnerable populations, we can come to something like 25–30% that they represent. That's a lot. 25–30% of our population every year crosses our country or stays within its borders. And as President Macron was saying, we have to protect others to protect ourselves. So we cannot ignore these vulnerable populations. So there are a number of essential services that need to be provided. in particular in primary healthcare, sort of minimum service package for vulnerable populations such as nomads and those living in remote, inaccessible areas. We had to make sure that refugees and migrants were also included, which is why our vaccination program was extended to those groups, the migrant populations. And the COVID-19 vaccine was the first trial, as it were, which is why today, when we think back to COVID-19 vaccinations, we started with them, the refugees and the migrants, which is why we have the same levels of anti-COVID vaccination today. 63% of Djibouti citizens, and about the same level among the migrant populations, certainly those that come through our country and the refugees. So it was clear to us we needed to provide services to those populations within our borders. But we've also worked with neighboring countries on a cross-border program for vaccination. That was the anti-COVID vaccine, but it's applicable to other areas, tuberculosis, polio, measles, for example. We work in cooperation with those neighboring countries. Going forward, what we'll do is try to devise a joint program and joint strategy with all the countries in the region, in the Horn of Africa, so as to improve our preparedness, our ability to detect and give early warnings and respond at the same time if there is an epidemic or signs of it. Thank you.
Well, it's indeed admirable that your generosity is indeed very admirable, and thank you for your perspectives from your country. Minister Nahab, what is your perspective on vaccination? Where does your country stand, and how do you see this new phase of acceleration in the drive that the aspiration that Gavi presented this morning? How would you respond to that from a country perspective, and how could we become partners in this aspiration?
Merci, Madame.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that I'm absolutely delighted to be here this morning and take part in this important high-level meeting on such an important issue. I would say that my country, Mauritania, very early on committed itself to a proper and extensive prevention program. We achieved vaccine independence quite early on, back in around the years 2000. And regular intervals every year, we have put in our government budget the necessary amounts to purchase traditional vaccines, but also to have access to new vaccines. And of course, all that was done in cooperation with Gavi. I would say that, like many African countries, Mauritania, for some time now, has had to deal with a persistent measles epidemic, problems with listeria, and poliomyelitis has also been detected, and this is in connection with a viruses directed from vaccines. This was in 2023. So all these diseases are avoidable, preventable through vaccines. And of course, they are among our national vaccination program targets. And to deal with this situation, our country has implemented a national vaccination strategy and very much supports AVMA because we feel this meets a clear need in terms of protecting African populations against preventable diseases through vaccinations. We hope this will lead to reduction of diseases and will help countries become eligible for Gavi funding. My country is going to get into that transition process very soon, and of course can only be satisfied to see this initiative, especially since the financing required for vaccination will continue to rise in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's interesting that you talk about measles outbreaks and what that is in terms of a proxy indicator of the underlying routine immunization. Mohammed, are you observing a similar trend in Nigeria?
Yes, I think it's, I had mentioned deficit in routine immunization. We saw diphtheria outbreaks, we saw measles, and I think the immunity gaps as a result of low routine immunization is behind it. But at the end of the day, I think we need to reframe the conversation around the need for parents to vaccinate their children as a matter of routine. We need to also deliver through the primary healthcare system, not only vaccination, but all the services, connecting the global health needs piece by piece with really local and community needs. And of course, from governments, invest more in our health systems like President Kagame asked. And I think that's the way to address this challenge. So the benefit that is possible from the the vaccines, the technology, I think can be made available to millions and millions of children over the period ahead.
That's well said. Marisol, how do you relate to this conversation from the country perspective, and how do you view it from an international agency perspective? What is the partnership dimension around this?
Thank you, Sanya. Excellencies, dear colleagues, as one of our friends was, I want to say first that it's really very exciting for UNITED and for myself to be part of this splendid initiative today in Paris. And as one of our friends was saying a moment ago, as I'm Francophone and we are in Paris, in France, I will speak French now.
UNITED is an organization, an international organization that from the outset has been involved in innovation, using it as a driver of facilitating access to health around the world, in particular for the most vulnerable populations. We have developed and rolled out more than 100 breakthrough innovations since we started that have enabled us to bring down treatment prices spectacularly, that has given a boost to populations during COVID-19, enabled us to come up with self-testing procedures for various illnesses. This means that every year we have an impact on 300 million people around the world. And it's thanks to innovation that we achieve these results, of course, but we want to go even further and faster, and we won't do that unless we do it together. And this is why I would take your question, because cooperation is obviously between us as international organizations with WHO, Gavi, and the World Fund. We in United work very closely, without these synergies, without this close partnership, we will not meet the challenges of climate change. We will not improve the efficiency of the way we work. But cooperation is also, this is vital for us in UNITED. It means cooperation with communities and countries on the ground, because we know that it's all together that we will rise to the challenge of eradicating certain illnesses. Let me give you an example, because this is an excellent example of what we can achieve together. Cervical cancer. We see all the types of cooperation needed. WHO has called for this illness to be eradicated. We responded as UNITAID, but we don't work on vaccines, but we need vaccines and prevention for young girls. We know that today there are women who haven't been vaccinated, and for them, we need tests, diagnostics, and possibly treatments. We need to train professionals on the ground and reinforce primary care centres. We need the support of governments, and in particular, we need the full commitment of the communities, because without that, we will not eradicate this illness. So it's a chain of innovation, and we need all of it. Innovation can be technical, it can be medical, obviously, for UNITAID, but innovation is also social. It's about organizing our health systems, and this is what we are trying to achieve along with the Gavi and the World Fund and the Gates Foundation and all our usual partners. In conclusion, briefly, we know that we can't work as we used to before COVID. That was a watershed moment. And if we want to provide better care for vulnerable, displaced populations, the poorest of the poorest, if we want to be able to provide temperature-resistant treatment, if we want to find a solution to postpartum hemorrhaging, we need innovation and cooperation. So I'm absolutely delighted to see today's initiative, because it shows that over and above specific programs here and there, it's together that we need innovation and cooperation. Thank you.
But thank you very much, Marisol. Innovation, that clearly is one of the most important levers that we have to change things. And Gavi, as you know, prides itself on its innovative financing instruments and the various modalities of innovation that it's deployed to mobilize resources. And I think from a country perspective, the challenge now for us is to mobilize the innovation ecosystem on the health system side, which is why we're very proud to be announcing the Innovation Scale-Up Fund. We're currently in the process of structuring it and will be announcing it shortly. But let me give you 1 minute in the end to, to give us your reflections on what you think needs to change at the country level and how innovation could enable that. Just sorry to be putting you on the spot, just 1 minute drawing on your wisdom, and then we'll wrap up the session. Mohammed, let's start with you.
I think deliver through the primary healthcare system, innovate in the context of our communities, meeting their needs, mobilize the power of our youth, our women, but also really earn the trust of communities so that we can continue to deliver this valuable tool of vaccination.
Abdullah.
Moi, je voudrais dire juste
I would just like to say strengthen health systems, because vaccines don't work alone. It is part of a health system. So if the system doesn't work, then the vaccination will also not work. So I thank Gavi that supports and helps us in bolstering our health systems overall. Secondly, reach everyone. Everyone must be reached. You know, native groups or other types of population, that's what I would take away. I think outreach, awareness raising, more awareness raising, I think that is how we will reach our goals, and involving communities, especially rural communities that oftentimes have been neglected, overlooked, and they, are remote in the context in which they live. So I think that through this initiative, we will meet those goals as soon as possible. We need to draw on women's strength and empower them with the knowledge, with the strength. The English word works a lot better. Empower. That's exactly what we need to do. Give them the power to combat misconceptions and the wrong type of ideas and values. That's what will enable women to give their children health assistance. You know, sometimes we know that women play key roles in providing healthcare for their families, and so we need to increase their power.
Merci beaucoup. Ce sera donc le mot de la fin.
So that will be the last words.
Complimenting you on your emphasis on women, on your emphasis on systems, and on your emphasis on trust. And I think if we have to unleash the power of innovation, it is basically to leverage these three levers. Thank you so much for so eloquently bringing it into the room.
Thank you. Ces interventions nous rappellent que nous
These contributions have again demonstrated that we need to accelerate progress if we want to meet our SDG goals. So everyone has a role to play, and we must take opportunities for collaboration and partnership. So that was at the core of the midterm review for Gavi under Spanish presidency.
Doctor General of the Spanish Agency for International Development Cooperation to come to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Spain is a country fully convinced that vaccination is the most effective disease prevention method, both at home and around the world. We were one of the first countries to vaccinate 70% of our own population during the COVID-19 pandemic, while implementing from early on a vaccine donation strategy that places us among the top COVAX donors. Spain has also contributed to the research and development of the first valerian vaccine and is currently working on a new tuberculosis vaccine. Supporting Gavi in making vaccines accessible to everyone and everywhere, especially to the most vulnerable, is a top priority for us. We have signed agreements worth more than 285 million euros through IFIM until 2035. Gavi is not just a line in our budget. It is a trusted strategic partner. That is why we hosted, indeed, in Madrid, the 2023 midterm review, and that is also why our private sector is also heavily involved through the La Caixa Foundation participation in the Business Alliance for Vaccination. Looking at the future, we see three priorities. First, we wholeheartedly support the ambition of Gavi 6.0 to start efforts to vaccinate 500 million more children, including particularly zero-dose children. We also need to prioritize HPV vaccination to eradicate cervical cancer, a very dear cause for a feminist development cooperation like ours. Second, we need to encourage greater collaboration of all actors on the ground with partner countries and communities in the driving seat. We support the implementation of the Lusaka Agenda, and we support AVMA today to ensure Africa achieves self-sufficiency and we avoid the inequity issues that became clear during the pandemic, also in other regions in the world like Latin America and the Caribbean. Third and last, we need to raise the bar. And that is why Spain is ready to increase financial support for Gavi 6.0 by at least 25% compared to current commitments, and we hope others can follow. Thank you very much.
Merci au gouvernement espagnol pour sa générosité, pour son soutien.
Thank you to Spain for its crucial commitment to Gavi and for reaching vulnerable children.
In Gavi's mission to protect people against infectious disease, and I'm pleased to welcome Global Fund CEO, Mr. Peter Sands, to the stage.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Your Excellencies, partners, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking France and His Excellency the President for hosting this very timely event and for France's unwavering leadership in global health. Gavi and the Global Fund are more than partners. We are like siblings, brothers and sisters in the fight to save lives. defeat diseases and help countries build stronger, more resilient and more inclusive health systems. We share the same home. We collaborate on many different things, whether it's malaria, health systems, supply chains, technical advice on public financial management. Since Sonia has taken over Gavi, I've met her countless times. I've lost touch, actually, on how many times we've had meetings and discussions. And together, Gavi, the Global Fund, the people delivering on the ground, governments, communities, civil society, and with other multilateral partners such as WHO and UNICEF, we have made great progress. However, there is much more to be done. Despite all the progress, over half the difference in life expectancy between sub-Saharan Africa and Europe is due to a relatively small number of infectious diseases and maternal health conditions. Some of these can absolutely be addressed by vaccines. For some, like HIV or TB, we do not yet have vaccines and need to rely on other tools. And for others, like malaria, we have vaccines that need to be used in combination with other tools, such as bed nets and treatments and diagnostics. But whatever the combination of interventions, the imperative is the same: removing the barriers to access and ensuring that those in need get the services they need, whether it's tests, diagnostics, treatments, or vaccines. Now, accelerating the development of high-quality, cost-effective regional manufacture and production is an important step towards improving access. And today we're very much focused, and rightly, on AVMA and vaccine production. Yet I would stress that it is equally important to regionalize manufacturing of tests, treatments, and vital preventative tools such as insecticide-impregnated bed nets for malaria. Working in partnership with Africa CDC, with WHO, with UNITAID and other partners, the Global Fund is committed to supporting this effort. As others have already commented, COVID-19 shone a harsh light on global health inequities. And unless we act, climate change and escalating conflicts threaten to make these global health inequities actually even worse, with the world's poorest and most marginalized even more exposed and vulnerable to life-threatening diseases. So I think today's event is a very timely and important occasion to recommit to global health, to saving lives, to beating the most deadly diseases, and to delivering on the promise that was made on the SDG 3, to delivering health and well-being for all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sands, for drawing attention to the need for joint approaches to health financing. As we advance the Lusaka agenda, Gavi and the Global Fund are working in lockstep to unlock new synergies. And now let's watch a brief message from Mrs. Catherine Russell, Executive Director for UNICEF.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it's an honor to address the Global Forum for Vaccine Sovereignty and Innovation. Today, we stand at the threshold of a transformative moment in global health, a moment that requires us to act with urgency and clarity of vision. Since its inception in the year 2000, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, has facilitated the immunization of over 1 billion children and the prevention of more than 17 million deaths. Together, through this alliance and with the countries in the lead, we have halved child mortality in 78 countries and delivered economic benefits in excess of $250 billion. The new Gavi investment opportunity that we're launching today represents a testament and a promise. It's a testament to what we can achieve when we collaborate and commit to a shared goal. It's a promise to build on past successes and accelerate progress. As we look forward to the 2026-2030 strategic period, our goals are even more ambitious. We aim to reach 86 million girls with the HPV vaccine. This can set us on track to eliminate, for the first time ever, a full category of cancer, cervical cancer. We aim to scale up malaria vaccines and prevent the deaths of hundreds of thousands of children every year. We aim to immunize another billion children with routine childhood vaccines in just 10 years, half the time it took to reach the first billion. We know that achieving these ambitious goals will require a diversified, vibrant, and resilient vaccine manufacturing sector. That's why today, the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, AVMA, is being launched in support of the governments and the countries that are leading these global efforts. This initiative lays the foundation for sustainable vaccine production in Africa. It builds on the strengths and founding principles of the alliance and brings together governments and the private sector, technical agencies, civil society, and manufacturers. AVMA aims to facilitate and support African nations in safeguarding the health of their people and address long-standing inequities that have put millions of lives at risk. AVMA represents a major step in our joint efforts to strengthen and solidify health sovereignty in Africa. To get there, we need sustained and united action by all partners. As the world's largest buyer of vaccines, UNICEF has long been a steadfast advocate of regional manufacturing and was an early and active supporter of AVMA. Our localization roadmap is embedded in our strategic plan, and we have been working closely with Africa's CDC, national governments, and manufacturers to support sustainable production and supply of key health commodities across the continent. We know that fostering local manufacturing not only improves health outcomes, but also drives economic growth and development and protects both lives and livelihoods. By leveraging our procurement expertise and commitment to quality, by supporting technical assistance, facilitating technology transfers, and ensuring quality standards, UNICEF is poised to do our part in turning the vision of regional manufacturing into reality. Esteemed guests, today we are launching the Gavi investment opportunity and the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, but we are also reimagining global health. This gathering in Paris is a chance to define the legacy of our generation. We have the tools to end disease and reach every child with life-saving vaccines. Let's commit to making this a reality. We must not miss this opportunity. We are closer than ever before to achieving goals that may have once seemed far-fetched. Today, vaccine equity is no longer just an aspiration. It is humanly possible, and it's up to each one of us to make it happen. Thank you so much.
Amazing, isn't it? And now it is my pleasure to invite Ms. Didi Wuneli, Director General of ONE, to the stage, please. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Excellencies. It's a pleasure to be here, and I congratulate France and Gavi for hosting this amazing event. Gavi's work is essential to ensuring healthier lives and more prosperous futures for children around the world. At ONE, we believe that where you're born should not determine whether you live. I have children, and they were actually vaccinated at Institut Pasteur in Senegal. And I've seen the efficacy of our work on the continent. Vaccines have a miraculous impact on children. They save millions of lives. And we must ensure that this miracle becomes a reality for millions of children around the world. We believe at ONE that where you're born should not determine whether you live, and whether you're born in Lyon or Lagos, you should live a full and meaningful life. By 2030, Africa will account for over 1/3 of the global vaccine demand, and this growth is driven by a population that will be nearly double in the next 25 years. Vaccine sovereignty is Africa's right, and it's a critical imperative that we all share. We must contribute to making this a reality in our lifetime. That's why I'm so excited about Africa's Union target to produce 60% of the vaccines that we need on the continent by 2040. But new analysis from the ONE campaign shows that this is 73 times what we currently produce on the continent. And that will take courage, bold action to really achieve this vision. So we move from talk to action. And what we're seeing today from the commitments made by Gavi and our countries is a step in the right direction. But we need to stimulate demand on the continent. Africa cannot grow a vaccine market without strategically selecting vaccines that Africa and the world needs, and producing it at the price that is competitive. Africa will require technology transfer and investments. The Africa Vaccine Accelerator program is a welcome initiative, and catalysts like the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator will drive the growth that we need. But we need other partners to work alongside us. We need to build trust, like Professor Pate said. And we need to ensure that every child can access these vaccines. This is where equity, justice, and communication comes in. As we work towards that goal, Gavi's role as a global vaccine leader is more important than ever before. And I thank Sanya and her team for their vision and their passion. Today, we must collectively commit to fully fund Gavi's replenishment to ensure that 1 billion children receive the life-saving vaccines and push for an equitable world and access. At One, we'll continue to partner with our core countries and rally the support that Gavi needs. We'll also work with our activists on the ground in Africa and our CSO partners to ensure transparency and accountability on the ground. Together, we'll make this world a better place for all our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. We know One will play an important role in helping Gavi reach its fundraising target. We are in your depth. We will now hear a video message from His Excellency Ahmed Hussein, Minister of International Development for Canada.
Hello everyone, bonjour à tous. Merci, Président.
Thank you, President Macron. President Ghazouani.
In person, but I'm delighted to participate virtually to celebrate the launch of Gavi's investment opportunity and the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator. Gavi is a long-standing critical global health partner for Canada. This partnership has enabled millions of children and young people around the world to receive life-saving vaccines every year. Yet, approximately 1.5 million children still die from vaccine-preventable illness every year, and nearly 20 million infants are still not able to access life-saving vaccines. So we know that there's more work to be done. In the coming years, we will work together to improve vaccine access for young women and girls against HPV and deliver the new malaria vaccine to children who need it the most. Bien entendu,
Of course, this partnership was also essential to increasing access to COVID-19 vaccines during the pandemic. The pandemic has shown us how essential it is to bolster global cooperation and to work together in order to guarantee swifter and fairer access to vaccines in times of crisis.
Carry forward. The African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator is a direct and important response to the need to produce vaccines closer to the people that need them. And today, I'm announcing that Canada will contribute $85 million towards this initiative. Aujourd'hui, j'annonce que le...
Today, I'm announcing that Canada will contribute $85 million to this initiative.
Engaged in supporting the African Union in reaching its goal to produce 60% of the vaccines needed in the region by 2040, as well as enhancing equitable access to vaccines on the continent. Today's announcements build on Canada's long-standing support for strengthening health systems. It also complements ongoing investments in the mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub in South Africa and the Pan American Health Organization's vaccine manufacturing platform. Le Canada est heureux.
Canada is thrilled to see the world gather and make pledges that are collective and bold, and that will help us to better face future crises. Thank you very much. So we are now nearing the end of this morning, which has been very exciting. Many pledges from countries, from organizations, bolder and bolder pledges towards Gavi and AVMA.
In Gavi's mission, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Tedros to the stage to kick off this session. Dr. Tedros.
Thank you, moderator. President Akufo-Addo, President Masisi, Deputy Prime Minister Justice Majara, my friend Jose Barroso, and my sister Sania, Excellencies, Ministers, dear colleagues and friends. I thank Gavi, France, and the African Union for hosting this important gathering. The participation of Presidents Macron, Kagame, Masisi, Addo, Faye, and Chair Faki shows their strong commitment to protecting health through the power of vaccines. Thank you so much for supporting Gavi. As many speakers have said today, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed and exacerbated many of the inequities that are at the root of so many health challenges on our continent. Nowhere was that more clear than in access to vaccines and other medical countermeasures. Early in the pandemic, with the leadership and support of President Macron, Gavi and WHO and other partners established COVAX to facilitate equitable access to vaccines. Together, we distributed almost 2 billion doses of vaccine to 146 countries, saving an estimated 2.7 million lives. COVAX helped us to reach the world's poorest and most vulnerable faster than we would have otherwise, but not fast enough. There is no doubt that the delays in reaching lower-income countries and communities with vaccines cost lives. We cannot allow the same thing to happen next time. And there will be a next time. History teaches us that the next pandemic is a matter of when, not if. That's why WHO's 194 member states are negotiating a new pandemic international agreement on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. Equitable access to vaccines and other tools is at the heart of the WHO pandemic agreement. And it has been a central part of WHO's work for more than 50 years. As you may remember, in 1974, WHO established the groundbreaking initiative to dramatically expand access to vaccines, the Expanded Program on Immunization that's known as EPI. At the time, less than 5% of the world's children were immunized. Today, that figure stands at 83%. Thanks to immunization, a child born today is 40% more likely to see the first birthday than a child born 50 years ago. This was only achieved by the joint effort of all partners, starting from Gavi, working together. And that is what Gavi is. Realizing the power of vaccines through the power of partnership, UNICEF, the World Bank, WHO, civil society, the industry, and more. The Gavi 6.0 strategy is the most ambitious in its history to protect more people against more diseases faster than before. Expanding access to vaccines means expanding production of vaccines, especially in Africa. WHO welcomes the launch of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, and we're committed to supporting the African Union to reach its target of producing 60% of continent's vaccines by 2040. This is something we're doing in several ways. through the mRNA Technology Transfer Hub in South Africa and the Biomanufacturing Training Hub in the Republic of Korea. Through WHO pre-qualification and the advice of the WHO Strategic Advisory Group of experts on immunization on which Gavi relies, and through support to strengthen regulatory systems and validate their level of maturity. I think Rwanda, Botswana, and Ghana are moving towards that, among other countries, the maturity level 3. And through support for stronger national and continental institutions, including the African Medicines Agency and the Africa CDC. Excellencies, Presidents, Excellencies, Ministers, dear friends, WHO is proud founding partner of Gavi and remains a proud partner. And I look forward to working with you, Sania, and Mr. Barroso for the next years and in the months and years ahead. Just a few weeks ago, the World Health Assembly adopted our shared strategy for global health for the next 4 years, the 14th General Program of Work. This strategy is not just about what WHO will do on its own. It's about what we can achieve together to support countries to achieve their health priorities. In that sense, Gavi's success is WHO's success and the world's success. I thank all of you who have supported Gavi so generously for so long, and I thank those donors who have announced pledges today. You have saved so many lives, and by fully funding Gavi and Gavi's investment opportunity and investing in partnerships like AVMA, you can save so many more now and in the future. So I call upon you and I urge, while thanking those who have pledged, to all member states and donors to fully fund the $9 billion to Gavi. Thank you so much. And moderator, back to you.
Thank you very much. As you've highlighted it, thank you, Dr. Tedros, the alliance can achieve the most impact when it works together. I have the great honor to introduce His Excellency Mokwetsi Masisi, President of Botswana, one of Gavi's strong allies.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, Your Excellencies, Heads of State here, and Professor Barroso, Alliance Vaccine Board of Gavi and CEO, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellencies, I wish to express from the outset my sincere gratitude to the French government, the African Union, and the Gavi Alliance for co-hosting this important event which aims to bolster sustainable vaccine production in Africa, as well as to unveil the Gavi investment opportunity for the years 2026 to 2030 period. Let me also hasten to express my sincere thanks to all the contributors who made the debate lively and insightful. The inauguration of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, AVMA, and the introduction of the Gavi investment opportunity for the years 2026-2030 period carry profound significance for all of humanity, transcending beyond the continent of Africa. The unequal access to critical human vaccines and life-saving resources in Africa is unacceptable in today's age. We challenge the prioritizing of corporate interests over human lives as a disservice to our shared humanity. This is especially critical in the light of the current disparity where 1% of the continent's vaccine requirements are produced locally in the continent. It is against this reality that African leaders have collectively set an ambitious target to locally manufacture at least 60% of the total vaccines doses needed on the African continent by the year 2040. From today's rich discussions, it is clear that Gavi stands on a crucial threshold in as far as our continental aspirations are concerned, key among which relates to overcoming immunization gaps to ensure the vaccination target of the next 1 billion people. Here lies the power of vaccination to protect and transform the lives of so many of our people through innovative solutions and collaboration. There is no doubt that it is vital for Gavi to collaborate with African nations in accelerating progress on various fronts with a view to, among others, enhance vaccine manufacturing, to widen access to both existing and newly developed vaccines, to facilitate access to diagnostics and other medical supplies, expand immunization initiatives, and ensure readiness for pandemics. Excellencies, distinguished guests, the African Union Framework for Action titled A New Public Health Order for Africa paves way for our collective efforts in this direction. In this regard, the African Medicines Agency, AVMA, will greatly assist our efforts towards pool procurement and co-financing aimed at strengthening continental vaccine manufacturing. Botswana is at an advanced stage in acceding to and ratifying the AVMA treaty. With that told, let us continue to uphold the principles of equity, inclusion, and solidarity in our efforts to enhance local capacities, broaden pool procurement, access to funding, and fostering sustainable partnerships towards a protected future for our people. To highlight Botswana's perspective, we have proactively implemented policies, programs, and ambitious targets to foster the growth of local pharmaceutical sector. By enhancing our capacity and leveraging the expertise of entities like the Botswana Vaccine Institute, which is initially focused on livestock vaccine production, we're gearing towards expanding our production capacities and capabilities to encompass the development of human vaccines. Excellencies, distinguished guests, let me on that note conclude by urging each one of us to carry forward the momentum from this event, to stay committed and laser-focused to our collective goals, and take bold steps towards a future where every individual, regardless of their background and their circumstance, has access to vaccines they need to live a healthier life and to thrive. I thank you enormously for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I commend Botswana for its progress in immunization coverage and long-standing partnership with Gavi. We will now hear a video message from His Excellency Jonas Støre, the Prime Minister of Norway.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, chers amis, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President.
I would like to thank Gavi, France, and the African Union with Team Europe partners for announcing the Global Forum for Vaccine Sovereignty and Innovation. I had the pleasure of participating when Gavi was launched by WHO, UNICEF, UN partners, private industry, some more than 20 years ago. Norway was one of the founders and original 6 donors to Gavi. Vaccination remains still a priority for Norway in our global health support. Why is that? Well, it's because investing in vaccination is so cost-effective. It promotes equality, it supports global health security, saves lives, so many worthy purposes. And then there is the Gavi model, which builds on the strength of each alliance partner. That was novel at its birth and still is. Now other sectors are learning from this approach. Gavi keeps evolving based on global health needs, as demonstrated by the pandemic. Norway welcomes the strong engagement from Gavi on the Lusaka agenda. Together we can strengthen coordination among global health actors to support countries' health priorities. So, dear friends, today marks the launch of the Gavi's investment opportunity. It will be key to deliver on the health SDG and to counteract the devastating impacts of the pandemic. 67 million children missed out on routine immunization between 2019 and 2021. This we need to change. The launch of the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator today is important, another key innovation by Gavi. With Africa CDC, we will contribute to scaling up vaccine production in Africa building on Gavi's unique market-shaping role. So Norway is proud to partner to support this initiative with a contribution of $26 million. Dear friends, Norway looks forward to staying engaged. Thank you for engaging. Merci beaucoup et bon courage.
Thank you and good luck. Thank you.
For its long-standing support to Gavi. As one of Gavi's founding donors, you have played a key role in its achievements to date. Your contribution to AVMA is testament to Norway's commitment to health equity, as also shown in Norway's leadership in the Lusaka agenda. I would like to invite our final speaker, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of Ghana, to the stage. Please.
Thank you, Madam the President of Botswana, the Chairperson of the Gavi Board and CEO, Honorable Ministers and Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for the opportunity to address the closing session of the Global Forum for Vaccine Sovereignty and Innovation. Recently in Accra, Ghana's capital, we hosted the Gavi board meeting where the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator was approved. This initiative by Gavi and the Africa CDC supports the African Union's goal to produce 60% of the continent's vaccines by 2040, highlighting the need for Africa to enhance her vaccine production capabilities. Ghana has a strong history of immunization, vaccination, maintaining high coverage through well-organized campaigns and routine immunizations. Despite COVID-19 challenges, we integrated COVID-19 vaccinations into our routine programs. However, global delays in vaccine rollout had a significant impact on our campaign speed, exacerbating disparities in vaccine coverage and hesitancy. These challenges underscore the urgent need for domestic vaccine production to reduce dependency on external supplies. Our commitment to sustainable vaccine manufacturing and innovation in Africa remains firm. By fostering public-private partnerships, we aim to benefit all, especially African countries. Currently, Gavi funds some 80% of our vaccine costs, with the government covering 15%. By 2030, Ghana aims to be fully self-financing in health services, viewing health financing as a strategic investment to build a robust health infrastructure. We plan to expand our vaccination schedule to include malaria, HBV, hepatitis V, and the second dose of IPV, aiming to increase malaria vaccine coverage to 261 districts of our country by 2030. Our self-financing roadmap for immunization services involves a gradual shift from donor to domestic funding, covering vaccine development, manufacturing, supply, deployment, and health system strengthening. This comprehensive approach ensures that all aspects of our immunization program are fortified and sustainable. Our new health financing strategy, 2023 to 2020, seeks increased resources for health, emphasizing preventive services and public-private partnerships. We're exploring new procurement mechanisms, such as pooled procurement with ECOWAS and the Africa CDC's platform for harmonized African health products manufacturing to enhance procurement efficiency and ensure timely availability of vaccines. In May 2023, the government of Ghana, established by Act of Parliament, the National Vaccine Institute to oversee vaccine research, development, and manufacturing. The Institute supports domestic vaccine manufacturing plants, market development, human resource capacity building, and strengthening research and regulatory adherence. By coordinating these efforts, the Institute advances our domestic vaccine production capabilities. Creating a regional vaccine manufacturing hub in Ghana will enhance vaccine availability and reduce costs. We are committed to supporting domestic manufacturing by private companies and research by academia and scientists. Strengthening our Food and Drugs Authority, a WHO-recognized Level 3 regulator, is crucial. We're constructing classrooms, establishing a molecular biology lab, and upgrading regulatory information management to maintain high standards and ensure the quality of domestically produced vaccines. Our regulatory support includes reviewing vaccine manufacturing facility designs, supervising construction, and providing technical guidance. We have supported DEK Vaccines and Atlantic Life Sciences Limited, our domestic vaccine manufacturers, and established a technical working group for regulatory readiness. This ensures that all stages of vaccine production meet stringent regulatory standards. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the African Development Bank for the $3 billion United States dollars granted for the Africa Pharmaceutical Action Plan. This is intended to strengthen the capacity of the pharmaceutical industry in Africa in the production of vaccines and medicines. And I also congratulate the African Development Bank, as well as for the amount of $3 billion given to the Strategy for Quality Health Infrastructure in Africa, which in partnership with the World Health Organization and the African Union will strengthen health infrastructure. The African Union also welcomes the creation of the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation by the African Development Bank to help African pharmaceutical companies access technologies, processes, and systems protected by intellectual property rights, and to strengthen their capabilities to manufacture medicines and vaccines meeting World Health Organization standards. And I congratulate President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, who chairs the Distinguished Advisory Board of the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation. African institutions should spearhead the agenda to develop and strengthen the pharmaceutical industry in Africa. In this regard, the African Union appeals to the Alliance for Vaccines, Gavi, to work closely with the African Development Bank Group and the African Pharmaceutical Technologies Foundation in the framework of the deployment of the African Vaccine Production Accelerator. In particular, we request that AVMA's treasury operations be carried out through the African Development Bank, Africa's leading financial institution, which enjoys a global AAA credit rating, which inspires confidence, and which always works in the best interest of Africa, as does indeed Afri-Exim Bank. In conclusion, this forum marks a significant step in establishing sustainable vaccine production in Africa. I commend the efforts that have brought us together in Paris to endorse this partnership. Together we can achieve vaccine sovereignty and innovation, ensuring better health outcomes for all Africans. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. President. What an encouraging message to conclude this gathering with. I'm not allowed to say we saved the best till last because everybody's intervention have been excellent, but it really does feel like the energy levels are rising throughout the day. I will try now to briefly summarize the progress we have made today. Today, We heard about the incredible impact the Gavi Alliance has had, helping vaccinate more than 1 billion children and preventing more than 17 million deaths. And with it, the call to action to finance Gavi's new strategy, which with $9 billion in new funding can accelerate this impact. With full funding, Gavi can reach 500 million new children with vaccines, saving 8 million lives over the next 5 years. Dr. Sana Nishtar shared how Gavi's new strategy will help protect the world against outbreaks and pandemics, protect people with the largest ever portfolio of vaccines, and protect communities by building the resilience and strength of health systems. Gavi implementing countries who will contribute a record of 40% of their own routine vaccine costs also reminded us about the power of vaccinations to unlock broad social and economic benefits. From industry to civil society to government, speakers highlighted the importance of innovation. 12 donors announced more than $1 billion towards the African Vaccine Manufacturing Accelerator, a new financing mechanism that will help achieve vaccine sovereignty and improve Africa's resilience in the face of health emergencies. We heard from leaders that Gavi is one of the very best investments in global development. With 4 donors from government and philanthropy already pledging at least $2.3 billion towards Gavi's new strategy, the call to action is clear. Support Gavi's ask of $9 billion in new funding to accelerate progress and protect our future. Merci de nous avoir suivis.
Thank you for following us. Thank you to the interpreter for their work since this morning.
Ministers and head of delegation to join me on the stage for a second picture, please. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you.